Right, seems to be live. A little bit of technical problems here. But anyway, shit happens, as they say. Oh, I'll close this window. Technical problems here. All right, so that's working enough. Yeah, as I figured, this stupid program that I really liked that actually had a decent frame rate for the cameras, and I could run both cameras. It's called GUVC View. GUVCVIEW. Anyway, yeah, it worked really great for a month and a half. So the new update on Lime, Linux Lime, somehow it's not compatible, and so it makes these idiotic temp files, and just so you can get it to work, but it'll eat all your hard drive space if you actually do force it to run. It crashes the first time you open the program, and then it makes temp files that just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's just irritating. Anyway, I'm not positive. I mean, I did delete them, and I was saying, hopefully it's, maybe I'll try it someday when I feel like having to reboot 3 times to fix all the mess it makes. But anyway, I just don't feel like getting in all that shit. So I don't feel like it. All right, so we'll put this on top. And I don't know how Frank got in here early, but he did. Anyway, I didn't think they announced the room until I actually started the room, but whatever. I did have some technical, like I said, I had to start and then stop and then restart. But anyway, enough of all that crap. Tired. It's just late start. All right, so there was a decent enough comment, and so I just thought I would go over it, and we'll see if I want to do anything more than that as things move along. See if anybody says anything worth listening to. So it's on this subject of the fact that I'm sort of arguing that the standard story of physics, whatever what they say, the lecturers and the physics books and all that stuff, they talk a lot about electrons moving through wires, and electrons sort of a representation of the volume of a current, or even the voltage would be the speed of the electrons and stuff like that. And I'm arguing that no, the electrons really don't move anywhere. They just tilt. They rotate, around the atom. They just go click, and the new one pops up and click, and the new one pops up and click, and the new one pops up and click. So the electrons are pushed around the atom, but they don't really move down the wire. And so this guy says that, but at the university, they teach us that the electron, when it moves, it induces a magnetic field. So again, I'm arguing that, it moves, but it doesn't move down the wire. And the electron moving, I'm arguing, is not what's inducing the magnetic field. What's inducing it is that when you force energy through atoms, the electrons polarize the atom. That is, the electrons move in a direction. The proton moves in the opposite direction, so to speak. I mean, the atoms bend over, so to speak, and they become polarized. And that is what causes the magnetism. So if the atoms are the right kind of atoms, they'll polarize. And that's the permittivity of the metal, the amount of magnetic permittivity, or whatever, how magnetic it can become. So this is true for the paramagnetic and the ferromagnetic. The ferromagnetic obviously being a lot more magnetizable in the sense that these atoms tip a lot more. Cootie pie mayo, or best foods mayo. Oh, that's funny. Not. Jesus Christ, where do these complete... I mean, really, I just wish you could just hit the kill button. Kill that person. Just kill them. Kill them. Kill them. Kill them. Kill them. No, Frank, you're not going to win any points with me if you're going to respond to troll comments. I don't really give a fuck what you like. I don't. All right. So then he says, it induces a magnetic field with north and south. Well, again, I'm arguing that electrons are the monopole and that protons are the monopole. So the proton and electron are the monopoles of magnetism. And I would argue that you could create some magnetic effect with just one of the magnetic poles. That'll be half as magnetic, right? But I would also argue that you can't isolate a bunch of protons or isolate a bunch of electrons in any density. And without density, you don't have any magnet. So if I make a magnet out of air or something, something with little density, you're not even going to be able to measure the magnetic field it produces because it's going to be so thin. I love to ride the monopole at Disneyland. Man, that's just so funny. No, it isn't. Oh, God. What are you, 6? You're just never evolved past your 6th birthday, huh? Well, 7, let's say. Never. Didn't get any smarter, didn't grow up at all, huh? Fucking pieces of shit. Frankenstein. That's so funny. Oh, God. Oh, man, you're just like, oh, ew. They're embarrassingly unfunny. Oh, fucking world. What a world. What a world. See, this camera also sucks because you can manipulate it in such a way as you completely fuck up your appearance. Anyway, I don't like it. Anyway, not nearly as good. See, I can't run both at the same time. I can't do my drawing. I can't do this. I I have to come up with another strategy. So if anybody knows how in two programs that would be compatible where I can run 2 different webcams at the same time, some arrangement that works, I would be interested, but I can't find one so far. All right, the movement of the electron is short and it polarizes the atom. So that's what I'm saying. So the movement is just this, like a clock. You can think of the atoms like a clock, and the electrons are just click, 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 clicking around. I think that's a good enough way to analogize it. How exactly it works doesn't really matter. I'm just saying if you think about it like a water wheel, the pedals never go anywhere. The pedals, so if I just had a bunch of water wheels and I ran water, you could just see the paddle wheels would turn, but the pedals never really go anywhere. All right, the movement of the electron is short and it polarizes the atom. So I'm basically pointing out that when you run current through a wire, the electrons move, but like I said, they don't move far. And when they move, they stretch the atom in some way. They polarize it. So now the electron and proton are now different positions. That is, the electrons are more forward, or the protons are less forward, or whatever, but it's polarized. And that makes the atom a magnet. So the atoms become little magnets, and the little magnets all lining up the same way becomes a big magnet. It's that simple, which produces a magnetic field of force, which means it just filters the gravity and creates a segregated magnetic gravity. But he says, but an electron can induce a magnetic field even when no proton is close by. I thought about that and said, no, I don't think so. So every example of electrons independent of protons would be something like an electron gun. And there's so few electrons in that stream that there's no way you would ever measure an induced magnetic field. That is, a magnetic field caused in some other material by those electrons passing by. The only thing electrons are is they're positive or negative. You know, they're charged. So they'll move in a magnetic field, but they will not induce a magnetic field. So I said, please provide an example. And so this other guy chimes in and says, well, if anyone cares, I've shot electrons out of an electron gun without protons, presumably, into a magnetic field. So he shot them through like a CRT tube. He shot electrons through a tube with a magnetic field around it. Same thing as the old TVs. They are affected because they curve in a smaller circle the stronger the magnetic field is. Right, so you can make the electrons into a little dot on the screen, or you can make the electrons into a big dot on the screen by changing the magnetic field. You're affecting the electrons, not the force that's pushing them, but the electrons. All right. But still no evidence that electrons themselves generated any magnetic field without the proton. Exactly. So he's basically saying, yes, I've shot electrons, but yeah, it doesn't, there's no evidence that they made anything magnetic. So then the guy, John Gray guy, says, which I was kind of a disappointing comment. He makes the assertion and then he backs it up. I ask him to provide some evidence, and he basically says, yeah, fuck you. Anyway, he says, I can't remember in what video I saw it, but possibly a Lewin video in 802. Well, I've seen all the Lewin videos, and I don't think I recall him ever even using an electron gun. And certainly I don't remember any experiment where he has a bucket of electrons or something, and he shows how the bucket is magnetic or something. So, I mean, you really can't herd electrons except using magnetism. And in doing so, you're not going to be able to show how electrons are causing a magnetic field. So again, I just don't think there's any such video that's part of Lewin's lectures. And this vague reference that, oh yes, it probably does exist. Well, no, I don't think it does. Or you could ask Lewin politely, why should I do it? You're the one that asserts it happens. I just ask you to provide me the evidence that it happens, and you just say, no, you go look. No, I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure I've never seen an example of electrons separated from atoms, put in a pile, and the electrons, somehow you can measure, you'll move them, and you can measure the magnetic field they create. I would argue that if I could make a baseball out of electrons, it would be creating a magnetic field, but it would be a monopole field. It would only be half of a magnetic field. Still magnetic, but only half of one. Only half as good as having the protons in a clump next to them. If you get the proton, having half a magnet is better than no magnet. But in theory, we can't cut magnets in half because they're atoms. They're a bunch of little magnets. And electrons are the original source of the magnetism, is my contention. So quite obviously, you can't hack it in half and create a dipole. It's a monopole. You can just create more monopoles. There are a bunch of monopoles lined up together. So they're still creating a biased field, but it's only half biased. It's only got half the bias of a dipole magnet. It's just the north side of the magnet. So you haven't in any way challenged what I have stated. Just letting you know, as far as I can see, there's no challenge to what I've stated with anything called like evidence. Walter Disney's another fake account. Very charming. Fake people. Their little fake lives, living in their little fake worlds. Little faker dakers. Anyway. It's so creepy. So let's see. So that was it for them. Nothing. Other than that, there's not much here. Somebody gripes about Miles Mathis. So he says Miles W. Mathis in capital letters, and then he says some, and then he puts in a typo type thing. Have been stealing, has been stealing most of Ed Ciallaranini's work. That guy is a thief and a liar. Sue him for defamation. Why should I? Let's see. I think your problem is you haven't made enough videos yet. LOL. I think your problem is you don't know what a rational argument is. I mean, even if you're going to be a counter type person, you should have enough, integrity or self-respect to actually make an argument that means something, not just some silly one like your problem is. I think your problem is you have a very small penis and a very small IQ. There. I think I've diagnosed your problem. Oh, fuck. I mean, just so fucking lame. I mean, you're implying that there's something wrong with the content on the channel, and yet you can't manage to articulate a rational debunk of some kind of nothing better than that. Yeah, fuck you. Amazing. All right, so then this guy says, watching a Neanderthal try to argue with Tesla. Again, so it's almost like the Ken Wheeler tactic. What does that mean? Oh, no, you're a knuckle dragger if you don't believe my ether theory. What is that? See, I can even remember his name. I don't even know what that means, but again, Tesla's content in terms of a scientific contribution, to science. I mean, it's just so small, and the fact that you think that somehow we couldn't have done it without Tesla, it's just silly, insanely silly. I think I just delete your nonsense. I mean, it's not an argument. You haven't explained how Tesla jumped us hundreds of years ahead. Without Tesla, we would have been hundreds of years behind. You haven't demonstrated any of that. All right. I think that's it for the commenters. Yes, go read his patents. Show me the patent of his for something that actually worked. So why don't you make a list of the Tesla patents that are still of any value at all, that have anything to do with how things really work. Oh, amazing. I'm just amazing. The very idea, and go read them in the sense that they're the vaguest patents in the world. I think we ought to use a transparent-like material to create vessels that we could put fluid in and drink out of them. I mean, half of his patents are for things any idiot could speculate. I think we should have rocket shoes. I mean, any idiot could just say, yes, rocket shoes. Yes, we'll have those in the future. So just claiming a right to imagination. Everybody has one. If everybody just patented everything they've imagined, then if I patent everything I imagined, then I probably would have 700,000 patents. Oh, shit. Do objects ever actually touch each other? Well, I've said this lots of times in videos, that's exactly the point. In the video you were just commenting in the other day, I pointed it out. I even said, oh yeah, that's a great line. I have to write that down. Remember that, force doesn't interact with force and matter doesn't interact with matter. You have to go through the conduit. Force interacts with force through interacting with matter, and matter interacts with matter by interacting with force. Yeah. So only force hits matter and only matter hits force. There's no other interaction. So it's just force and matter is the only interaction. Nothing else is an action. For example, we don't really need to make an example, but okay. If two billiard balls collide, did they ever touch each other? Well, obviously, the electrons on the surfaces of both of them are likely the things that were excreting a pressure. And so they're ping pong paddles. And as I pointed out, when the paddles get really, really close, you can sort of understand that the speed of light, the ping pong ball is bouncing the speed of light. So you just kind of imagine, okay, it's bouncing the speed of light. Imagine when it gets really, really close, how many impacts that would mean per second when the paddles are really, really close. So it would be, the pressure becomes infinitely high, essentially, when you get very, very close. So that's the argument, that electrons really could never hit each other because the pressure between them would be infinitely high. You couldn't make enough external pressure to ever force the paddles that close. So the balls are obviously banging off each other's, the force coming off the electrons. Okay. Or was there a gap? If gap, then what caused them to bounce off each other? I'm just surprised you would ask this question, in the sense that you have obviously watched some of these videos. I just don't even know how you could. I'm surprised. I'm almost stunned that you'd ask this question when almost every video in the last 5 videos I've made some reference to force and matter, and the fact that matter doesn't interact with matter and force doesn't interact with force. Well, anyway, he couldn't make much due to a lack of technology. What do you mean make much? That doesn't even make any sense. He wasn't any kind of businessman, but he wasn't any kind of scientist either. He was paid a ton of money to do things that had commercial interest. So, I mean, the most glaring example is J.P. Morgan paid him to do the telegraph thing. And Tesla didn't want to do the telegraph thing. He didn't want to do communication. He wanted to send electricity to France. And that's what he spent the money on. So instead of doing the Marconi thing that J.P. Morgan essentially paid him to do, he wasted the $2 million on something that any idiot could have figured out is not going to be possible. First, every idiot knew the atmosphere burned as you pushed electricity through it, and that there's just no practical way you can push the electricity through the atmosphere without it getting burned away. Beside the fact that everybody also knew that voltage always goes to ground. Positive voltage goes to ground. Negative voltage goes to ground. You can't, voltage always goes to ground. Always. You can't float it through the air sideways. That's why lightning is up and down, because you can only do it up and down. You can't do the sideways thing. Any idiot could figure that out. And yet Tesla was, gluing feathers on his arms and trying to fly. I mean, he was just so outside of rational. I just can't, I just don't know why you people have why are you such whores for Tesla? He was obviously an interesting and bizarre character, but he was just bizarre. I mean, he lived his whole life in a frickin' hotel. I mean, and his whole later life, when he could have been writing or doing, he spent 30 years not working in a laboratory, not doing anything. And in those 30 years, he didn't write a fucking thing. Nothing. I mean, the best he could do was he would do an interview now and then and make and insult Albert Einstein. That's all that was his career for 30 years, was doing absolutely nothing, accomplishing absolutely nothing, and just insulting the other scientists of the day. And talking about his death ray, of course. Of course, he had a death ray he was trying to sell to the Russians or the Nazis or whoever would buy it, right? He's trying to sell a frickin' death ray that he didn't have, that he couldn't demo. and you want to make him into, you know, the Lord of Science. Damn. No, anyway, just not. What are we talking about again? I guess I wish people wouldn't do that. Okay, you want me to redo the whole video for you? I was sort of interested in this comment by a person who was challenging my argument that electrons and protons are the monopoles of magnetism, and that electrons don't really move through a wire, and electrons don't collect in a battery or collect on the surface of something that's charged. So they always talk like a Van de Graaff machine is tearing electrons off and throwing them onto the metal, and then the metal somehow moving electrons through the atmosphere. No, none of that's happening. It's just pressurizing the atoms. And so the Van de Graaff is pulling the pressure off of some surface, not collecting the electrons. Or it's essentially creating pressure. That's what the friction is doing. The friction pressurizes the atoms. It takes that pressure and conveys it through other atoms and dumps the pressure into the conductor at the top. And then that pressure gets higher and higher and higher, and it tries to get to the ground. Tries to get to it out. Tries to find a door that says low pressure. It's got high pressure, and it's just saying, I got to find a low pressure door to go out. But so no need for this notion of electrons moving, causing something. The movement of the electrons is not what causes the magnetism. The magnetism is being caused by the polarization of the atoms, and the polarization is being caused by the movement of the force through the electrons, passed on. So the water traveling over the water wheels, if you can expand your imagination, we'll just imagine the water on top of the wheels. The water, okay, causes the wheels to turn. When the wheels turn, it polarizes the atoms, which turns them into magnets, which creates the magnetism. Magnetism is created by atoms, dipoles, not by the monopoles. I mean, the monopoles obviously are playing their part. I'm just saying it's very hard to separate it's very hard to separate the monopoles. It's very hard to create a pile of protons because the protons hate each other. And it's very hard to create a pile of electrons because the electrons hate each other. They repel each other. So it's really hard to create one without making them into a combined structure where they connect to each other, and that makes it possible for them to be closer together. So to make a dense object, you have to make a dipolar object. Electron party for the win. So this is Scar Runner. Now, Scar Runner, you just see me deal with a bunch of like dopey shit, retarded shit, and then you just make these retarded little comments like, electron party for the win. You don't see how it's just a fucking sissy or useless or unscientific and just gooey little crap talk. You don't see it? Whatever this is, little X-y mouth face thingy. Yuck. Based on your remarks, besides being able to, what is this? Okay, to afford to rent a hotel. No, you didn't really see. I mean, you know, there's a whole story to it. See, Westinghouse, who Tesla, they had paid Tesla for his patents, and they went bankrupt. You know, trying to kill Einstein. I mean, Edison's electrical model. And so they couldn't afford to keep paying Tesla. So they made a new deal with Tesla, one-time payment for his patent on the AC phased motor, which was one legitimate invention of Tesla's. one good one. And but Tesla had been given, millions of dollars, so he made a ton of money off that patent. And so then later, when Tesla went bankrupt for the fourth time, they paid his hotel bill. So they paid to keep him in his retirement, just as a, nice guy gesture for the fact that, they did sort of, when they were broke, they did have to sort of screw him on his patent. But anyway, okay. Besides being able to afford to rent a hotel room, like I said, he didn't pay his hotel bill. The company did. And having lots of patents, again, patents that were not producing any income. What's the difference between you and Tesla again? I wouldn't associate myself with Tesla. He was a huge failure. He was wrong about 90% of the things he said. He was wrong. So, he was a Trump, for fuck's sake, in a lot of ways. His ambition was way out of balance. Again, how do you defend the fact that he went around the world trying to sell a death ray that he didn't even have? He was trying to get other countries to invest in him so he could try to build a death ray. That's the person you admire. Have you never seen lightning travel across the sky? ? I'm saying that most all of it's always heading in the downward direction. So whatever it looks like to you simpletons, who don't really want to think about it, the lightning really isn't traveling across the sky. It's traveling in a direction. And it just depends on what the atmospheric conditions are. So clearly there can be fronts that meet, and there can be a lot of moisture in certain areas and no moisture in others. And there can be dense pockets of air, highly humid, others not humid. So the lightning is obviously going to be traveling through the area that has the most atoms. It needs atoms to get from the bottom of the clouds to the ground. It has to travel through a path of atoms. So it really depends on what the atmosphere is doing, what path exactly the lightning will take. But the fact of the matter is, it's a descending path to the ground. It's always, I won't say always, because it has little jitters in it, but 98% of its energy is always in the downward direction. I mean, people are just, just physics. You got to pay a little bit of attention to detail, a little bit. I mean, so these people, they really do think that Tesla's idea of moving massive amounts of electricity across the atmosphere makes sense. Even moving it through a conductor is difficult. We have to put it at a very high voltage, right? And there's all kinds of loss liabilities because the atmosphere is always playing capacitor. There's no way to create an insulator perfect enough or cheap enough to prevent you keep losing your electricity to the ground. Right. I mean, his death ray, again, it was just based on a physics that can't exist because he had a notion that this was all movements through an ether. And so he just didn't appreciate that these little perturbations weren't just perturbations. They're hunks of atoms in the way. And the atoms aren't going to disappear for the electricity. They're not going to just say, I'm not really here. Just go right through me. You don't have to blow me up or anything. Yeah, you do. They didn't want to utilize magic dark energy, whatever that means. It sounds like a dead end. Didn't he want to utilize magic dark energy? Well, I don't know about any of the dark energy thing. I don't know anything about that. The point is he thought he had an idea that the energy was already moving everywhere, and that all you were doing is seeing some of it and not seeing the rest. So he thought there was a bunch of energy moving everywhere, and it was only some of it that you were seeing. So if you could always he thought it was like a streetcar, and it was a cable always running, and all you had to do was hook onto the cable and you'd go. So in a sense, he believed in a kind of free cable that you could just hook onto and go. Man, this was live cast. Man, this live cast is exciting. Well, whatever. It's physics. It's physics. What is it supposed to do? Oh, he was a big critic of Einstein's theory of gravity. He was a critic of everything Einstein. And clearly I'm a critic of Einstein. So that's okay. But his criticism was insulting to the character of Einstein, which I thought was just so bogus. And I just love the way Einstein got back at him, because it was a really great dig in a really mature way. So when Einstein was asked by a reporter, what's it like being the smartest man in the world? Einstein said, don't ask me, ask Mr. Tesla. Because Tesla thought he was the smartest man in the world. And I just love that dig. It's just so fucking perfect, because that's what Tesla was. It was all fancy clothes, meeting people, oh, Mark Twain's my friend. I got lots of friends, I showed them little sparky things. But he, very low on substance. Yes, a descending path, and the clouds too flowed down it. Well, I mean, I'm not going to really have a conversation about this flowing cloud crap. Do you not believe that could be manipulated? I don't believe you can send it through the atmosphere. As the lightning is demonstrating, it's burning the fuck out of the atmosphere. That's why you see the lightning, is because it's burning the fuck out of it. God, you just, if you put a little wire, they've done this, you string a wire to increase your likelihood of a lightning strike, put a wire. The lightning vaporizes the wire in like a zillionth of a second or whatever. I mean, it's that costs energy. It's not, do you understand? Going to France, you'd lose all of your energy. There wouldn't be any energy when it got to France. Oh, Jesus Christ. We could draw in clouds. There's no clouds going down the lightning bolt, by building cylindrical towers and cooling their inside. Whatever. I mean, you people are just, the human race is so doomed. You people will buy any kind of horse shit, just any kind of complete fucktarded crap, and they'll just sit there and eat it up. Give me the magical tornado. Can't we make tornadoes for good? Peace tornadoes? Yeah, you could, but you know how much money it'll cost you to make a tornado? Do you know how much energy is in a tornado? You know how much oil you'd have to burn to make a fucking tornado? Interesting. He wanted to use the background energy. Yes, he wanted to use a kind of energy that, like I said, he believed in free energy. He didn't really get that energy is just conversions of force. It's just being converted from one kind of force to another kind of force to another kind of force. Hopefully we'll have some physics, whatever that means. Yeah, ha ha, whatever that means. What are your thoughts on the Philadelphia experiment? Oh, so let's just talk about silly movies. Oh, isn't that fun? No, I don't want to do that. I'll answer your question. It's a good movie, but obviously I don't think we can move back in time, and especially on an aircraft carrier, and we'll spin it around, and then we'll tap our heels together and go, there's no place like home, and then we'll fly to wherever we want to. Yeah, I don't think that happens. Fuck. How fast do you think witches' brooms can go? Is that going to be your next question? Star Wars was a documentary. Whatever. Whatever. Yes, there's all this energy in that little lightsaber. Yeah, they got super batteries. Never have to recharge anything somehow. And of course, you can use the Force, the magical Force. Just reach out your hand. I can make things fly into my hand and stuff. In my magic Force. Oh man, you people are just going all kinds of wrong ways, aren't you? So you FO sociology guy, I was kind of hopeful the other day. You seem like a reasonable sort. I mean, somebody already brought up this time crystal thing. I looked at it, it's just complete nonsense. There's no time crystals. What the hell was it? It was something completely stupid. I mean, this is flat Earth character stuff you're bringing up. I mean, it's so stupid. Can't possibly have anything to do with reality. Anyway. Well, so what's that as a standard? Quintucca brought something up. So what? I'm just saying, nobody should be bringing up just complete nonsense. So fatiguing being on this planet. So I did ask that other guy. You know, I did comment on his video. It'll probably get deleted, but we'll see. It's this new heating batteries. Who cares? See if there's any other subscriptions. Yeah, no one's doing any freaking decent physics videos anywhere. Okay, WSF Connect Q&A with David Albert. I'm sure that's crap. But maybe we'll see what it is. Amazing slime. No, that's not too. Oh, physics girl. Forget it. It's not physics. It's whatever. Silly Barney the Dinosaur physics. What is bandwidth? Christmas lectures. It looks like a lecture from 40 years ago. Well, maybe that would be interesting. So maybe we'll open that up. Maybe. So what else do I want to do first? How the hell did I get this far back? Oh yeah, there's the Ken Wheeler thing. I could do that, but that's, you know, it's just all that stupid rhetoric of his. It's useless. Totally uninteresting. Okay, that's lenses. Where's the, I know I opened it. Testing. So it is. Flat Earth tards. Yeah, so that's the way it is. So let's just refresh this and see if my comment is.
What is best in mind? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you.
Yes, very interesting. Everything's a joke. Jokes, jokes, jokes. Yeah, how much would I have to pay you to attempt a debunk of draft physics? There you go. So we'll see if we get an answer. YouTube is so slimy because even if this comment gets blocked, it'll still show up when I go to look at it. You know, it's just such a racket. So you have to open a private browser to see if the comment's really there. So Snoop Dogg's medicine. Okay, that you're not heading anywhere good with these comments. The David Albert thing would be interesting. he's a philosopher of physics. Well, there's no physics philosophy. I mean, it's just silly. It's a silly combination of words. Philosophy is a branch of science where you don't have, like physics, evidence. Physics is about things you can pile up facts and evidence. Philosophy is about stuff where it's circumstantial. And so you have to make logical arguments detecting meaning. Philosophy is about meaning. Philosophy of physics is stupid. It's not physics. It's like saying the meaning of physics. Well, the meaning of physics is to get the right answer. So the meaning of the science of physics is to get the truth. And that's the whole problem here. They don't got it. The philosopher's stoned. It's all about these little witticisms, right? You just got nothing else. It's nothing. Talk witticisms. I might as well just rename the room. Talk witticisms. Let's all just make 3-word jokes. Why don't you just, I'll rename the room Kill and Mend Them, because you're just trying to kill me. You just abolish all hope, any little bit of hope I have for the human race. Just wipe it out. Just demonstrate people are just fucking incapable of doing anything serious, doing anything right, ever. And it's not because the politicians suck. It's not because the cheaters control everything. No, it's because you people are fucking idiots. You demand it. You force the world to suck. Because that's the only world you'll applaud, is the suck world. Just hate it here. All right, so let's watch this piece of crap.
Bill Coates has arranged here a series of transmitters in which we're going to send a signal down several different forms of radiated energy, one after another. Here we have a jet of water coming out of this glass jet here and going over to hit a membrane.
This is the worst kind of stuff, is when it's great to use analogies. It's great to make it, like I made the water wheel analogy. But it's clearly just an analogy, okay? Let's not really, make too direct a comparison. Do you like math? Well, it depends on the math, I suppose. I don't mind a little bit of trigonometry and some algebra, but I'm not too happy with tensors and spandrels and whatever, all that crap. I'm not doing a class on quantum black holes. I don't even think there is any such thing, so you're not winning me over either, Bill Joe. God. You are a wise man. Who cares what you think? Like, your opinion matters? This is like having, Bubba Big Butt tell me, you're really good looking, or something. I mean, it ain't going to mean anything to me. But you need a better way of winning us over, wizard. Why would I want to win you over? I'd want to kill you, maybe. I want to maybe, tap my heels 3 times together. There's no place like the whatever, Helliverse, where you could send all these fuckers. Please. Whatever. Oh, can't stand it. Can't stand it.
Brain on the end of this tube here. On the jet, he's now going to put a small ticking clock. And now ripples going down the jet start very, very small, but they get bigger and bigger. And when they hit the diaphragm, one can hear the ticking of the clock.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm very excited.
That experiment was first done in the Christmas lectures at the RI here in 1889. It's a long time ago.
Right. So let's all, let's go use an outhouse. Just, let's go remember the past for no good reason. So let's all go out and build an outhouse and take a shit in one, just for the fun of it. Math is important when doing physics. Again, it isn't really. Physics, again, is about defining causes and effects, defining why things happen and how they happen. Mathematics is just formalizing what you already know. What happens? It doesn't tell you anything about why it happens. Math isn't a scope, a telescope or a periscope that shows you causes. It's just a description of effects. Jeez, it's just this, glorify the math. No, it is not. It's not a lens. Math is not a lens. It's just a clear piece of glass with formulas written on it. It doesn't make something that you can't see seeable. It's just a way of describing what you already can see, what you already do see. You are a big complainer. I don't give a fuck about this opinion. You need a better product. You can go fuck yourself somewhere else. Irrelevant. Useless fucking mush.
But we're going to follow it now by picking up that vibration with a laser beam. The membrane here transmits its motion by sound waves down the tube to another membrane at the other end. On the middle of that membrane is fixed a small mirror. Over here we have a laser. You see the beam. Bill sprays aerosol into the beam. The beam is reflected from the mirror to a receiver here that then gets the message.
Right. So how is this interesting? This is like just showing us dominoes, right? I don't know. Is this doing something interesting?
We switch that on.
Hey, Chad, it's good to see
My
you.
hand in the way, stops. Of course, if I stop the jet, it stops.
All right, now for the magic part, please. Please show me something interesting, please. This is just too obvious. I mean, this is at the Royal Institute. This is the place like where, whatever Newton gave lectures, or every important physicist gave important lectures about new discoveries. And he's doing a kindergarten demonstration. I would imagine the audience is like, you can't do better than this? Duh. So far. Duh.
Well, now I put another microphone round in front there to pick that up. And Bill Coates has arranged that microphone signal comes into.
So this is just Rube Goldberg, right? I knock a pin over, the pin goes, it knocks a little ball down a thing, it goes down the little trail, it pops out, just Rube Goldberg here. Not interesting.
This little box here and controls the current in an electric wire. So the message is now going down an electric cable to control this ordinary hand torch. And the hand torch is sending ordinary light.
The flashlight. Freaking British people.
Not laser light, over to the receiver here. Switch this on. Its signal is being picked up on this. Yeah. Now I can chop this beam. And finally, of course, that signal is being picked up by radio mic here with an aerial transmitting radio waves to the aerial of a receiver. And that is going through the cable up to the loudspeaker where you can all hear it.
Wow, it's just so fucking amazing. Gee. Could anybody who's past the 8th grade find this totally amazing?
And also we'll be going out across the country by other radio.
I mean, it's like any kid has sat on the dryer, right? And or the washing machine. Ooh, that's twitching my anus. Oh, that's giving me a boner. Oh, there's a cascading of events. I mean, this is just such bullshit. All right, what a bunch of bull. As if mirrors, scoff, actually work. Oh, no. Just go away. No, it perpetuates the light into 1,000 pieces. No, light can't be 1,000 pieces. And show me the link that proves light gets reflected. Well, there's so many experiments demonstrating. I've done it on my own porch, retard. So I don't even know how you can even say things this fucking stupid. I mean, it's so fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. You know, can you resize chat so it doesn't cut off your head? Oh, well, that would be fine. I mean, probably would be superior or better if I did do that. Yes, no, I can do that. It's still going to cut off some of my head, but won't be as much. So where it says say something, I wish it said say something reasonable. That's what I wish it said. It's the dust on the mirror that diffractionizes the light. So you don't think there's a dustless mirror? You don't think I can make a piece of chrome clean and the light just reflects? It goes in, bounces, comes back. I mean, it doesn't bounce directly. It probably bounces in a U-turn kind of way. Goes in, bounces off electrons, comes back out. Bounces through the electrons, between the electrons, however we want to say it. But the photons are photons. They're the smallest, fastest little bits in the universe. I have a whole theory about what they are. You really aren't going to be on subject if you're just going to bring up truth or crap here. So you're not going to last very long if all you've got is off-subject truth or crap. You either defend conventional theory or you attack my theory. But doing this thing in between is absolutely useless. I've already debunked a ton of false prophets. Okay, it's just not my job to debunk every single one of them. Well, fusion isn't close just because the container to hold it is impossible to make. It's pressure. The pressure inside the sun. Okay, I don't want to say something too outrageous, but it's an insane amount of pressure. So to make pressure requires energy. So to get energy, you have to put in so much energy. And you have to be able to contain the energy you're creating. So it's like containing a nuclear bomb or something. You know how much energy you'd need to push the nuclear bomb into a container? That you can't really extract anything out of it. So I don't think it's close. I was the one who said the light can't reflect because it diffractionizes, which isn't even a rational word, into 1,000 pieces. Yes, that's what you said. That's just idiotic. Maybe take some memory pills. I just read your comment and responded to it. Now, maybe you should fuck off. I gave you a warning. It said, quit talking rubbish, retard. God, I couldn't have made it clearer. I read your fucking comment. I commented how it's idiotic. Then you said another stupid thing, and I said, it's the dust on the mirror. And I said, yeah, another stupid comment. People are so fucking dumb.
Waves in the form of television. To summarize, we've got the same signal now going through a water jet, then a laser beam, then a light beam.
Yeah, I could put a TV, and then I could put a camera watching the TV, and then I could put that image going to a TV, and then another camera to a TV, and another camera to a TV. Wouldn't that be fascinating? I think the theory is that pressure will be contained by some kind of magnetic field. Again, but you can't create such a thing. Magnetism is gravity. Newsflash. And all you can get out of gravity is what gravity has. You can't get more out of it. So you can only get gravity by density, that is mass. So again, you're just defeated. There's unless you make a sun, unless you make a heavy thing, you have no way of creating the pressure necessary in any way that you can contain the pressure you're going to create. Anyway, I don't want to keep going over it, but I don't think it's going to happen. That's, you asked me the question, I answered the question. Math isn't important, says the dude that can't even do basic kinematics. So more lies. So why don't you back that up with something? Where have I failed to do proper kinematics? Where's your proof that there's some evidence that in some way I have violated a conservation rule somewhere? Liar. You're just a fucking liar. So do it again, I'll block you. Lie some more, I'll block you. And again, I didn't say math isn't important. I made a very clear statement. Math is a description of effects, things we see. Dispute that statement somehow, retard. Explain the mathematical formula that explains the causes instead, that shows us how something was caused. You're such a fucking idiot. Rigged math. Where do you get that from? I mean, obviously some percentage of the math is contrived, like Einstein doubling the mass of the sun for photons only. Yes, if you don't think there's math that's been rigged, if you don't think there's any aspect of Maxwell's equations that have been fudged, then you're a deluded retard.
The radio beam. You may not think that the sound of a ticking clock is very interesting. Perhaps.
Yeah, exactly, I don't.
You prefer the sound of music.
No, I probably won't.
This can be arranged. Bill Coates can arrange almost anything.
All right, this is just so bad. So you're saying the audience doesn't understand that the music is the same thing as a vibrating speaker, which is a vibration. That's no different than the clock ticking. It's just that it has a beat. Your audience doesn't know that.
Sound of music going down the light beam.
This is amazingly trivial. I mean, shit.
Energy can go from the transmitter to the receiver, carrying the message.
I gave an example that you requested for. Your example was probably as pitifully poor as your grammar in this sentence.
Message in some form which the receiver is sensitive to and that can decode. Let's have a look at some of the ways in which this coding is done.
Look, whatever you are, marmalade. In the last, let's say, 20 videos I've made, in any one of those 20 videos, why don't you cite some portion that you say is flatly provably wrong? Why don't you do that? Why do you have like 10,000 balloons on the ceiling over your head? I don't have 10,000 balloons. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a ceiling fan that's shadow, not spinning. Oh, whatever. Is your hair just like that? Or is your hair just like that? All right, well, I'll just block you. This couldn't be more unimportant. So, I mean, this was 1905 and Einstein was in his patent office saying, I think I have some physics ideas and such, this would be your contribution. Why your hair funny? Well, you think you're Nietzsche with that mustache? Asshole.
We have here, on the lower beam of the oscilloscope, a wave that could represent a light wave or a radio wave. In fact, it's just an electrical signal that imitates any form of wave that will propagate from transmitter to receiver. On the lower screen down here, we have a spectrum of that wave.
Thank you.
This is a graph of amplitude by frequency, and we see there's just one frequency there. It's a simple sine wave.
Incredible.
Well, now on the upper beam of the oscilloscope here, we have a signal of 1 kilohertz. That's the same as the Greenwich time pips.
So he's just showing us now AM modulation. So it's very exciting, right? You're all very excited.
Let's say we want to transmit that to some distant point by radio. The first way in which we can do it is to take the carrier wave, as it's called, the radio wave, and vary its amplitude.
That's right. Make it strong and weak, and strong and weak, and strong and weak, based on the signal of the amplitude of the audio signal. Very exciting. Yes, AM radio.
Make it bigger and smaller in time with the signal that we want to send. So if I put the modulation on, you see it's now small at the trough of the wave and big at the peak of the wave. And at the receiver, if the receiver is expecting this sort of signal, it can follow those changes and give us back the original wave and use it, say, to drive a loudspeaker to tell us exactly what time it is. But now look on the lower screen. We see that our single carrier wave has now become split into 3. There are 2 sidebands.
Yes, the sidebands. Fascinating.
2 smaller waves either side of the main carrier. And those are...
I mean, you keep doing this, whatever this crap is, okay? One point was about, you have to actually, the comment section on videos allows you to write, substantial stuff. You have to articulate what your point is. Give me a Wikipedia link. Give me some point that you're saying I haven't addressed, or that I addressed in some improper way. This is just so fucking annoying, you creep. There's no 200 character limit in the comment section of the videos. Comment section. You haven't heard of that? Jeez, just such an asshole. I mean, you really think I don't understand the inverse square law and when it applies and when it doesn't. You really think, after all the videos I've done, playing Lewin, playing Feynman, playing all these videos, do you think I don't understand what causes the inverse square law, in the sense that it's usually spherical geometry? That's the #1 cause of the inverse square law is spherical radiation. Radiation that can come from 100 degrees in 2 dimensions. 180 degrees in 2 dimensions. That's essentially the inverse square law, idiot. Fuck, not interested. But anyways, I did give, okay, fuck off with this. I'm not interested. You braze the point and then you're too big a frickin' coward to make the argument. Fuck you. Damn.
Exactly 1 kilohertz either side of the carrier, because it's 1 kilohertz, 1,000 waves per second we're transmitting. If I increase the frequency...
I should have sped this up from the beginning.
Up to, say, 4 kilohertz, and the sidebands move further apart. They're now 4 kilohertz either side. That means that if we have a faster signal to send, we've got to use a wider range of frequencies to send it. And that is a general principle. But if you want to send information faster, then you've got to use a wider range of frequencies, or a wider bandwidth, as it's called. There is another way of sending that same signal, where we don't use amplitude modulation, but there is frequency. If I press the
Right, well, that's all this is.
This
is just a boring
see that the waves are further apart here.
explanation of AM and FM transmission. An amazingly preposterous waste of time that was. Let's see what this Q&A thing is, just for curiosity.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the World Science Festival live chat with David Albert, who is a professor of philosophy at Columbia University and also a physicist. Today, we're going to be talking about our recently released program, Pondering the Imponderables, the biggest questions in cosmology. We have a lot to talk about today, so please ask your questions into the chat box on YouTube, and we will get to as many questions as we can. Kevin asks, would it be correct to say that whatever physics brought us into existence also brought life into existence?
That seems right to me. There was.
Oh, I've seen this doof before. It's such a stupid question. Yes, life is part of physics. It's made out of matter. Yeah. Duh. But the point I made the other day I thought was kind of interesting was about the energy conservation argument. Essentially, that gravity has been essentially absorbed into objects to make them, to pressurize them, force them together. And that should have like a consequence that if gravity was some sort of renewable resource, that is, if the universe, let's say, was a bubble and radiation like light would hit the bubble, from the inside, we're inside the bubble. The radiation hits the bubble and it bounces back as gravity, as neutralized force, back to the rudimentary force. That you could sort of understand that if you're consuming the force to make things stick together, that eventually you'd run out of the force and that the force would start to get weaker. And you could almost argue that the early universe, it seems like things were really compressed. That is, galaxies were quasars, really small, highly energetic balls of shit. And that over time, galaxies have gotten big. That would sort of make sense, right? Not saying it's the truth, just saying that's one of the 50% kind of theories. Yeah, it fits, sort of, but it's a sort of thing. Yes, could be. How does your electron mechanism create the inverse square law? Well, first off, the electron is getting hit by the force from all directions. Understand that much? Every direction. So from any side, no matter what shape the electron is, the same force comes out. So it doesn't matter what its shape is, because the force goes in and it comes back out essentially in equal proportions. That is, there's just as much mass on the bottom half of the Earth as there is on the top half of the Earth. So there's just as much energy getting absorbed this way as there is energy getting absorbed this way, which is heating the Earth, by the way, hitting and melting the core. But the rest of the energy goes back out again. So the only energy trapped is the energy heating the core, and the rest of it comes back out, pressurizing the core. So the core is pressurized, and the pressure is being created by gravity. But once it's like a thermal question. Once you've created the thermal equilibrium, then everything that goes in comes back out. So it's like the planet Earth when it comes to solar radiation. Everything that goes in comes back out again because the system has been preheated. So it's already at thermal equilibrium. So technically everything that comes in goes back out. Yeah. So let's see. How does your electron mechanism create the inverse square law? Okay, it doesn't. So no. So you're going to tell me what my theory does? Oh, you're not a little bit of an obnoxious asshole. You don't understand the inverse square law as with anything else. So again, I think I do understand it much better than you, and your argument is shit. So bravo for being a shithead that made no argument. it should if the bits spread out over a sphere. Again, and obviously you can't see both sides of a sphere at the same time. You can't be on both sides of the sphere. So you can only be hit by the force coming out of one plane of the dimension. The forward one or the backward one, the up one or the down one, the left one or the right one. You can't be on both sides at the same time. So, I mean, obviously it would be r to the fourth power if you could be on both sides at the same time. Basically just outward moving bits radiating evenly over a 180-degree sphere. Yes. It's creating anti-gravity. Is creating anti-gravity impossible? Well, I mean, no, you can levitate things with lots of forces. I can shoot a hose and make something levitate. I just have to make another opposing force. Gravity is a force. If you want to oppose it, you have to oppose it with another force. Bro, okay, you're blocked for that. You got anime going. No, I don't. So just fuck off. There's no anime going. But even if it was anime, who cares? On the TV behind you, I thought that wasn't your thing. There's no anime on the TV behind me. They're movies, bro. So, fuck off. I'll just delete you, I guess. I'll give you a timeout. But yeah, you say bro or dude, you're blocked. How come I didn't do it? I said put him in a timeout. It usually says timeouted. Okay, there it is. Fuckhead. All right, so let's see.
A period. There was a period in the history of the universe before there was anything like life or human beings, and
so they're just saying this stuff. He doesn't know what the universe was. He doesn't know how many universes have existed. He doesn't know how many times it's recycled, how many times it does all kinds of stuff. So it's just bullshit talk. Just blah, blah, blah. There was a point in the universe where life could be, or there it couldn't be, or there it can be, or it can't be. Blah, 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 blah. Says you. You got nothing. You got no evidence. You just got your speculation. And, you know, they really should have to, like, you can inject me with cancer if I'm not right about this. There should be a standard for how much they would be willing to invest in their assumptions about what happened 13 billion years ago. It's just such horse shit.
if physics can really, at the end of the day, amount to a complete account of the things that it's supposed to be a complete account of the motions of material bodies, if that aspiration is taken really seriously, it's going to have to amount.
You have to understand the difference between causes and effects, though, to do that. You have to understand the difference between understanding what happened before and then what happens after. And formalizing the after is only half of the job. Yeah, that's the best I can do with the volume.
To something that can give us an account of how life first arose, of how we first arose.
Yes, that we have pretty good evidence of. So here they're really confident about what happened 13 billion years ago, and they can't say with some measure of confidence that they know it's just chemistry that caused the first living thing, right? It's just an arrangement, an evolution of chemical compounds. Not surprising in any way that this would happen, and the only thing that I would argue is the fact that those kind of very improbable chemical reactions kept happening, and it happened over and over and over again in terms of the improbable events kept happening. So it's like you're flipping coins and you get 50 heads in a row or something, a very improbable thing to ever get to complex living organisms. Very improbable.
Out of life, so on and so forth. We have crude sketches from the work of people like Darwin.
We have better than crude sketches. The sketches of evolution are a lot better, a lot more exact and precise than your silly sketch of the early universe. Oh, these people.
so on, about how that might have begun to happen. But yeah, if physics really aspires to be a complete account of the behaviors of material things, among the material things that it needs.
It should aspire to provide an accurate description of function. And you have incompatible theories that are full of paradoxes. You're pretty far from the goal.
To be a complete account of are not just rocks and planets and baseballs and projectiles, but plants and animals and people and so on.
I think that's a question that George Ellis, who is also on this program with you,
Right.
is looking at.
Right, and George would have a quite different picture of it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's good that you bring him up. Yes, George thinks that George finds it very implausible that there could be a kind of physics that's complete in the sense that I was just describing. I very well understand the
I don't very well understand how anybody would think there is something other than the possibility of a complete theory in the sense that it's just mechanical. Let's see, Antelope, do you even know his mechanism? You claim doubling the distance will make the force 4 times less. I don't even know where you're getting this comment from, because I don't see it. 4 times less. Try to visualize this. Doubling the distance will mean bits will take twice as long. I don't know. Doubling the distance means the divergence of the rays. The sun produces rays. The rays diverge from each other as they go out. This divergence creates 4 times when you square it. It's diverging in both directions. They're diverging this way and this way. That's the inverse square law. Straight line forces diverge, and the divergence creates an area, okay, 4 times bigger than the area at half the distance. At half the distance, the area is 4 times smaller. So you're more likely to hit something sitting in it. If I put my finger in this little hole, you're very likely to hit it. Put my finger in this hole, you're less likely to hit it.
Reasons for thinking such a thing. It's definitely true that the kind of mechanistic picture that physics ends up presenting us with of what kinds of things we are is very, very difficult to take in and very much at odds with our normal intuitions.
Oh, blah, 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 blah. This couldn't be more boring. All right, so yes, and in your electron mechanism, the bits in between will take twice as long to bounce in between. There's no inverse square law between electrons, okay? The force bit bouncing between the electrons is not inverse square lawing. It's bouncing directly, straight line reflections back and forth. There's no diverging. Oh, shit. I don't know. There's just no hope. The bits in between will take twice as long. Again, this twice as long, yes, that's doubling the distance. That's not the inverse square law. The force between electrons is just the R law, not the R squared law. Anyway, I imagine someone taking that sound bite where you go on about finger in the hole. Oh, I mean, just, you really can't. You just can't be a tiny bit adult. Too much trouble for you, right? Playing in a gay club. Okay, so what, you're a bigot too? So you can fuck off. Douglas, well, the rate of bits stays the same. I don't see why the time of travel matters. I guess I'm just amazed. The hit is at the speed of light. Every hit is equal and every hit has the same amount of energy. 2 ping pong ball battles. The ball always moves the same speed. It's going the speed of light. At this distance, there'll be, let's say, 10 hits per second. We're just making up a number. At this distance, there'll be 20. At this distance, there'll be 40. The hits are an expression of energy. That's pressure. But it's not the inverse square law because it's bouncing back and forth. The inverse square law happens when you have like electrons moving, and it can get hit when it's moving here, and the thing will reflect this way. And then it gets hit over here, and it'll reflect this way. So when photons are created out of atoms, they pop out of the atom. They can pop out that way. They can pop out that way. They pop out that way. They pop out in an inverse square way. They can pop out of the atom. That's why the radiation spreads with the inverse square law, because each atom is producing photons in almost any direction possible. You know, forward direction possible.
About what kinds of things we are. I think the question of whether physics can be completed in that way is sort of the basic question that the scientific project is investigating. George.
Well, you see, they should use some sort of like completed. They should use the word unified, because that's what sort of completes the theory, is some explanation for how it actually works.
Thinks that he sees clear arguments that physics couldn't be completed in the way I'm describing here.
Coulomb's law in 2 metal balls. So what are you talking about with Coulomb's law for 2 metal balls? What you're talking about? Charge now on the surface of 2 metal balls, and you're comparing that to this conversation? And what exactly do you want me to say about Coulomb's law that is somehow different than what I just described? I mean, I've explained this stuff so many times. Do you understand? Like, from this distance, these 2 surfaces, let's say they were shooting light in all directions. So they're doing the inverse square law. And this surface. From a distance, the inverse square law happens. As I bring them closer and closer together, all this stuff now isn't doing the inverse square law anymore. Now there's a guarantee that this force, all of it, hits this, and all the force from here hits this. So now there's an increase in the sense that there's no decrease in the amount of force. So let's say you had, say you had lights like LEDs on a surface that was like 50 miles by 50 miles. And then you put another one of LEDs 50 miles by 50 miles. You could separate them by almost any distance, like from from being right close to each other to say being, I don't know, 100 feet high. And you'd get exactly the same amount of light. It would never decrease. Exactly the same amount of light would be hitting somebody who stood right there in between them, because only a tiny percentage of the light from the other LEDs would be missing them from the sides. So it's the infinite plane argument. If you have an infinite plane, the amount of force doesn't change no matter how far apart they are. You can never change the amount of force because you never miss any of it, because the inverse square law falls apart, because all the force hits you. No matter where it diverges, it still hits the surface. It still hits the other side. If I'm a little island right off the coast of America and I'm throwing baseball, I'm throwing something at America from different places. So they're diverging. I'm throwing baseballs and they're all diverging. The fact is, the coast is going to be so big that every single baseball is going to hit America. No inverse square law. Well, it's not inverse square because it's not both dimensions. But the point is, I can't miss America.
I don't understand why those arguments are compelling. We have intuitions about what we are, but we're used to physics overturning all sorts of very fundamental.
We have intuitions about what we are. I mean, it's just so horseshit. We don't have any intuition about what we are. None whatsoever. It's just such horseshit. You either have facts or you don't. People's intuition is that they're fucking byproducts of a creator who poofed them. People don't have any fucking rational intuition about what we are. What an idiot. All right, so I don't know. What's this waste of time? But Miss America can. What does that mean? All right, what else has he said? I mean, I don't know what the hell that is. I don't even know what the... I retracted something else, right? Okay. All right, so I don't know. Time out. Yeah. Fuck you. And why would electrons radiate when the two balls are far away? The electrons are radiating the gravity just like you are right now, idiot. There's gravity going in this side of you and it's coming out that side. There's gravity going in this side, it's going out that side. There's gravity going this way, it's going into the earth. There's gravity coming up from the earth, it's going out your head. The electrons don't create energy, they filter it, which I've only said on this channel 748 times, at least. At least, probably more. Dumb motherfucker. All right. It's inverse square at a distance, but close together, the probability of a bit reflecting off one right back to the other becomes big enough to create bouncing effects. Well, I'm just saying the inverse square law isn't a law, okay? So it doesn't hold when things get very close. And when you're dealing with charges, charges are like bringing things close. They have that effect in the sense that they give back what they get. They don't radiate. A charge they experience, they don't reflect it at any angle. They reflect it directly back. So charged surfaces, the inverse square law breaks down fairly rapidly when they're associated with each other. And it only works at distance.
Intuitions we have about the world. Whether it will succeed, whether it could ever succeed in reaching all the way to its goal in this respect is something we're going to have to wait and see about. That's what I take. I
mean, you know, you brought it, the guy brought up Gauss before, or whatever you brought up, what's his face. But I mean, the whole idea is the idea of recognizing that there are circumstances where you can essentially draw an imaginary surface around the object and you can figure out how much charge is in there because the charge can't escape the object you create.
To be the fundamental question that the scientific project is addressing itself to.
This scientific project. Oh, that's so original.
I guess I wouldn't, you know, in advance of that, have such clear intuitions about it as George seems to.
Oh, interesting.
No, it wasn't interesting. It was just a bunch of rambly bullshit. The whole subject is uninteresting. What's the meaning of meaning and meaningfulness and meaningerosity? No, don't do that. Dumb idea.
So this next question comes from Hakeem Jahan Sek, who asks, how do extra dimensions play a role in...
Oh, fuck. So no one's going to ask something like a rational question. Fuck. You know, how do unicorns affect the magical singularity platypus? I mean, do they get along, unicorns and magical singularity platypuses? Or does the unicorn maybe step on the platypus? How does that all work? That's physics, right?
Understanding the universe. And to kind of come back to that first question, is there any progress toward experiments that could ever detect extra dimensions?
So,
fuck. Just fuck. Why don't you just ask SpongeBob? Why don't you have SpongeBob on the show and ask SpongeBob, for fuck's sake?
Yes, there are. I mean, there are a number of ways in which speculations about extra dimensions play an important role in the attempt to understand the physical world now.
Oh, fuck you. Just fuck you for saying there's any reasonable evidence pointing to the existence of this mushy, made-up crap.
One that's very widely known has to do with string theory. In order for strings to be able to behave
a completely failed theory, by the way. I mean, it hasn't passed a single test. It's just complete crap.
In ways that seem to plausibly be able to give rise to the kind of world we see, we need to imagine them as vibrating around in more than 3 spatial dimensions. There are other
because yes, it creates so many errors, and we need to get extra energy from someplace. So we can't have virtual strings because you already used virtual for the magnetism thing. So we can't be using virtual strings because that'll make us sound silly. So we have to have an extra dimensional place so we can have all the strings we need come in, and the strings we can't make any sense out of go out. What a pile of crap. All right, I don't know what this is. You can't miss America, but you can miss American. I mean, what the fuck? What kind of sick, stupid poo have you been eating?
Reasons coming from the foundations of quantum mechanics, where you might think that sort of non-local connections that we discovered between very distant physical systems might find their most plausible explanation in imagining that space has...
Oh, I'll just speed this up some more, because this is just such horse shit.
More dimensions than the 3 that we usually think it does. So there are a bunch of places where speculations about extra dimensions have come up. Of course, they came up also 100 years ago in the development of Einstein's special theory of relativity, where time came to be understood as much...
Not by Einstein, by the way. You said, yeah. So, you know, he says 100 years ago, and no. It wasn't until the 50s you started telling Einstein he doesn't even understand his own theory and started adding all this extra fucktard to it. Remember, Einstein was the guy who said spooky action at a distance. He didn't go for any of this horse shit.
More like a 4th spatial dimension than anybody had suspected it might be before Einstein came along. And special relativity is, of course, now an extremely well experimentally confirmed theory.
Big fat lie. It's not extremely well proven, not like Darwin's theory, okay? I mean, there's nothing like the amount of evidence there is for evolution for any of this horse shit about the time dimension. They have little shreds of evidence. So again, he thinks the Eddington experiment was fine, and they've proven that light's bent by gravity when it's not. They think that because there's a relationship between velocity and the change in the atom's metabolism, that somehow they've proven time is a dimension. So because you can break atoms by moving them, wow, we've proven time is a dimension. No, you haven't. You're just such a fucking liar to say this is somehow a well-proven theory. You don't have anything called proof. You don't even have anything called really good evidence.
We're still groping for experiments that might be able to confirm or refute string theory.
Oh, so then he brings up string theory again. You're never going to find a fucking experiment to well, anyway, yeah, to prove what? Something preposterous, that vibrating strings in what? String ether? So why don't you just do ether experiments? Why don't you just overtly say, we need to find the ether? That's what we need to do. Because that's what you people believe in.
For us, but people are hopeful that eventually we will be able to design such experiments. So, as you were saying, this connects up with the first question. Some of these experiments may be hard to do. Some of them may require a great deal of cleverness and ingenuity.
Yes, more bullshit. Lots of black boxes with magical functions and spinning mirrors and all kinds of crap. We'll need lots of crap so we can hide anything. We can make it do anything we want because the experiment will be so full of crap. It'll be so Rube Goldberg, no one will be able to fuck the bouncing ball. So we can make it do anything.
In order to set up situations which will tease some of these secrets out of nature. But I don't see a reason to be pessimistic in general that these things will have empirical implications that would.
Flying platypuses. No reason to think it can't happen. They got a bill like a duck. They could fly. They wag their tail in a spinning motion. It'll probably work.
Will in principle be able to probe by doing experiments.
It's interesting you bring up time as an extra dimension because I think these like 11 dimensions sound so weird, but now with 100 years past, 4 dimensions doesn't.
4 dimensions sounded very weird to people at the time, and we now know very well experimentally what that means.
Right.
Oh yes, experimentally. Again, more horse shit. They don't know shit. They don't know, as factually demonstrated, shit. As Walter Lewin would say, there's no need for light to light a night light on a light night like tonight. What is this? I'm just saying, please block me. Please, please, please. Time you out.
What my cash value is in terms of experiments that we can actually do and effects that we can actually see.
Mm-hmm. So this is a very simple question, but probably not a simple answer. Explain how order results from chaos in this world, please.
Oh, fuck. I mean, these are just stupid questions. Fuck. In the first place, there's no such thing as chaos. It's a stupid word. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, we have a number of really interesting scenarios, scientific scenarios. Maybe the most vivid one.
Yeah, whatever. There's no chaos. There's checkers on a board, and they're already on the board. They do a certain thing, so the order is dictated by where the checker falls on the board. It's just you can't break cause and effect. It goes all the way down. There never was any chaos. It was just inevitable.
Is the Darwinian picture of evolution by random mutation and natural selection.
Obviously, it isn't random, and so that's kind of another bullshit word. Scientists really shouldn't use the word random because there's no such notion of a real random. Everything is cause and effect.
You have, it was always the case that one of the most powerful arguments people could elicit for there having been an intelligent designer of the universe is the magnificent design of living organisms, which seems...
Yeah, it's obviously not magnificent design. They're all parasitic mass murderers of children. Parasitic mass murderers of children. Oh, what a magnificent design. No, that's not a magnificent design. It's a shitty design. It sucks. Thieves. Energy thieves. Oh, how beautiful.
So efficient, so well thought out, so intricate, so well adapted to the...
Well, again, and we all know that isn't the truth, right? I mean, we all get cancer, we all watch the people fall apart and get dilapidated, and we all know that my anus should be on the bottom of my foot or something. It shouldn't be anywhere near the rest of me. It shouldn't be on somebody else's head. I shouldn't even have an anus. It should just be a little place and a little pellets. And there's this, I open a little door and I can just throw the pellets out anywhere I want.
Jobs they need to do, that they seem to be vividly screaming out, testifying to the presence of some kind of intelligent designer. And there's this, just sort of a...
this is just so terrible. There's nothing screaming. No, it's just an idiotic concept. Who designed the intelligent designer? There, we're done. Forget about that theory. That's stupid. I mean, it's just stupid. Oh, the complex thing was first, and then it made stupid simple stuff. So the very complex thing decided to make green slime. That's stupid.
Amazing idea of Darwin's, which is very simple but unbelievably powerful. And look, here's an account of how all this order could have emerged from something.
From, yes, evolution. The evolution of chemistry first. First you have hydrogen, then you have helium, then you have lithium, then you have this, then you have that. And then when you have those compounds, you can mix them in all kinds of different ways. And eventually you make a DNA molecule out of the banging in and the crashing, and they create a DNA molecule, and then the DNA molecule replicates, and because another molecule cuts it in half, and then another molecule stitches the other pieces together. And so now it's a replicating molecule with help. And then the with help system gets stuck inside of a membrane. And then the with help system with a membrane decides to eat another with helper, and it swallows another whole cell, and now it has a nucleus, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's it. Stupid, dumb fucking story.
Much more chaotic without the intervention of the designer or anything like that. It could be just that there were random genetic changes going on.
It's not that it just could be, it's that every single fact indicates, yes, that's what happened.
Living organisms all the time, the vast majority of which are grotesque failures that don't contribute to the survival of those.
Another gross way to describe it, you know, in terms of failures, because we know that most of the failure is just circumstantial. You know, you're walking by, a giant walnut hits you in the head and you're dead. It didn't have anything to do with your survivability. All right, so this is some other asshole. Let's see. I asked for why the electrons radiate. Again, I'm not going to argue this. They radiate like every single thing in the universe. Gravity penetrates every material thing in the universe. It goes through it. And when it goes through electrons and protons, those individual bodies reflect it differently. Electrons reflect the electron force, protons reflect the proton force, and excrete the other force perpendicularly. I've explained this over and over again. Electrons excrete no energy themselves. They merely convert the energy that hits them. You fucking cunt. Okay, electrons radiate when it comes to two metal ball scenario. So he's back to this shit again. What? What do you want me to tell you? It's charge, you idiot. Where have I misidentified what charge is, you stupid cunt? The black force is the electron force. So the electrons are black. The force that reflects off them is black. Can you understand that? Is that too complicated? Red and black checkers? I mean, no, I've already been over this. Why electrons are repulsive is innate to the physics I've described. It's an innate function. They will create infinite amount of pressure if you push electrons together. An infinite amount of pressure. You crazy fuck. When it comes to two metal ball scenario, which has to do with repulsion, he has cited gravity, which attracts. No, you're an idiot. You're so fucking stupid. It's amazing. Gravity doesn't, in the first place, attract. It pushes, you stupid cunt. Okay? But the point is, it's obviously both happening to electrons and protons to the dipole. So what one gives, the other one takes away. And as I pointed out, gravity works by absorbing force. That's why the Earth in the core is molten, is because it's absorbing force going this way and it's absorbing force going that way from the two fucking sides. And the reason why I am pulled down is because at this very fucking moment, there's some asshole in Fuji, right, who's sitting in a chair. And right now he's absorbing force, pushing on the ground, absorbing energy. And the energy he just absorbed is now pushing me down because I'm not getting the energy I should be getting because he ate it. He ate the energy that was heading for me. It's not hitting me from underneath anymore. So that's why the energy on top of me is more fucking imbalanced, you dumb fucking idiot. And I've only been over this in 1,000 fucking videos on this channel. There's no way you watched any of them to ask a question this fucking stupid. All right. Is he having a manic episode? No, I'm just so fucking sick of imbeciles. So fuck you till you're dead too, jackass. As Einstein would say, I'm a young man when with a trash can strapped to the back. Okay, dark helmet, fuck this. Waste of time. I mean, I really shouldn't have to go over the basics over and over again. It's just too fucking stupid.
Organisms at all and don't contribute to their ability to pass on their genes to successive generations.
Okay,
but there's
yes.
a very, very...
All right, so yes, so again, people are tuning in. This is supposed to be something to do with physics, and it's crap. And second, it's more just juvenile shit. Oh, like we all need evolution explained to us. No, I don't think so.
Number, which by pure chance result in mutations that increase the adaptability, the adaptiveness of that organism to its environment, increase the efficiency with which it processes energy or information, increase...
You know, in which it slaughters children. I mean, you know, the efficiency with which it slaughters other people's children. Bonobos even go on genocidal raids to kill the other DNA competing with theirs. They go kill other people's kids. That's efficient.
Its ability to defend itself against predators or something like that. And this isn't because anything was designed for their benefit. It's because when this comes along at random, it increases the ability of these organisms.
Again, it doesn't come along at random, but let's just say at a wide probabilistic possibility, yes. It's a dumb competition. Steal the most shit, period, and lay eggs. Steal shit to lay eggs, period.
To pass down their genes to another generation. It increases their ability to survive. And so it can count as a successful explanation of why, if you look down the road, you see these ever-increasing complexities and degrees of organization in living systems, which it's fair to say emerged out of chaos without the intervention of any intelligent designer. We have other examples of emergent...
I know, but it didn't just emerge out of chaos. It emerged out of the laws and rules that the bits had to follow. And so those rules, the idea that they will end up clumping and that the clumps will clump, those rules are what provided the possibility of complexity.
Of order from chaos like that on more elementary levels in statistical mechanics and so on and so forth. There is a result of something in mathematics that's called the law of large numbers, that if you that if you have a sort of random looking situation where half the time a certain particle goes one way and half the time a certain particle goes the other way, it looks just like complete chaos. If you look at very large numbers of particles.
No, I think if half the time it goes one way and half the time it goes the other way, that doesn't look like chaos. That's the opposite of chaos. This guy doesn't, he's a Ken Wheeler. He's just talking gibberish, jabber, gibberish. There, did I answer your question with some gibberish?
You'll see them as a result of that organizing themselves into two groups, one of which is this way, one of which is that way, which with very high probability have the same numbers of particles in them and so on and so forth. So there also you get the emergence of something that looks organized out of chaos.
Again, it's not chaos, it's physical laws. And the whole point of physics is to describe the physical laws. Duh, I forgot.
Again, without the intervention of a designer, just as a matter of the way statistics mathematically compile with one another. So I think that's a really good question, and I think it's...
I think you're a turd for saying that. It's an idiotic question. It's just fucking stupid, and you could have given the simple answer, which is there are rules to the function of the universe, and if you follow those rules, you will inevitably create cycles at minimum of complexity.
one of the great triumphs of the modern scientific project that we have been able to construct.
The triumph of the, he did it again, the scientific project. You're a religious kook, essentially, talking against religion.
Plausible, explanatorily powerful scenarios whereby things which looked as if they must have been designed with some purpose consciously in mind can have come to look that way without the intervention of any consciousness.
Yes, and the same is true for stuff like velocity and let's see, what's a good example where they do their quantum mechanic thing? Yeah, photons going through slits. There could be that it is exactly as it intuitively appears, that the complex matter is affecting the photon. Or you could be a whack job and figure, no, the simple photon is doing all the tricks. The matter doesn't do anything. It's not complicated. You're the assholes. You got everything backwards. You got plus signs on the wrong, minus signs in the wrong places. You can't even figure out the obvious, that the electron is and the protons are the fucking magnetic monopoles.
Intentions. I will.
And this next question maybe goes to a very chaotic part of our world, the quantum world. It comes from IA.
So another, they just keep using word chaos and random. I mean, it's just, you know, these are two words that really shouldn't be used by a scientist because, frankly, they're shitty, not really true words.
Who asks, what lies at the heart of the probabilistic nature of the wave function?
So now we're going to do the wave function. No such thing, but let's do it anyway.
It drives one outcome over another.
Well,
there's no chaos or randomness in the wave function. Probability, you know, the fact that there is a probability means it can't be random. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's the definition of a probability. As soon as you say it happens 1 out of 10 times, well, then it's not random anymore, is it? No, it's 1 out of 10 times.
I think it's fair to say that at the moment, that's an unresolved question. We have...
Oh, good. So why don't you just say that and shut up and move on to the next question instead of doing this jibber-jabber thing.
Several ways of thinking about quantum mechanics now on the table. We have ways of thinking about quantum...
Yes, we have virtual and double virtual. And then we have entanglement, and then we have, well, we have annihilations and creations, you know, which are really cool, annihilations and creations. So we got virtuals, and we got double virtuals, then we got the annihilation creations, and, you know, we got this entangled to, you know, superluminal stuff going on too. Really cool. Yes, exactly. Probability, it's all inevitable. I'm just saying, obviously, the only thing that prevents us from seeing inevitable is a lack of details. We can't see all the information necessary. But if we could see the information, if we could watch the little dice in slow motion, hitting every little thing just a certain way, we could see that, oh, yes, look, it's tumbling just the right way to become a 1. It all happens that way.
Ways of thinking about these random events as associated with something called a collapse of the wave function. We have ways of thinking about these random events as things that depend very sensitively on initial conditions.
So again, they're not random. Why are you just calling them random when we know that it's exactly proportional, that the glass gets more and more reflective as and then it goes less reflective, exactly proportional to how much I shave off the surface. It's a completely proportional relationship. It's not fucking random.
Which is the kind of thing that happens in classical statistical mechanics that I was just mentioning. We have ways of thinking about these random events as random shifts of our own perspective on the world rather than random shifts.
So nowadays turn into perception, the thing again. Like somehow the randomness is in our heads, not in our matter. The randomness is in our imagination, not in our physical world. God, it's just so bad.
In the world itself, that's something associated with Everettian interpretations of quantum mechanics, many worlds interpretations of quantum mechanics. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, well, why don't you just talk about flying platypuses, please? The singlepus. The singularipus. The singularipus.
say that we have several promising ways of trying to understand what this randomness is about and where it comes from. And luckily, various of these different interpretations are in principle experimentally distinguishable from one another. Well,
Yeah, the wacky interpretation. Yeah. It's a mad, mad, sad, bad world.
though we're not yet at the point in our technological development where we're able to do experiments that would distinguish between these interpretations. But there are, so the short answer.
They're all bullshit. They're all phantasmagorical, wishful, wasteful wankery. They're all imaginations. They're all three fucking bear stories. They're little fables that don't have any evidence to back them up.
The answer to your question is we don't know. The slightly longer answer is we don't know.
We don't know, but we're pretty sure fairy godmothers do exist, because I couldn't live without thinking she's going to show up someday. She's going to show up someday. That little cricket guy. He's going to show up someday and make me a real boy.
Yet, but there are several promising proposals on the table for making sense out of this. They make sense out of this.
Oh, fuck. Make sense out of it by vibrating strings in the magic 400-dimensional ether space. Like cello music. I hate this.
Interestingly different ways that imply interestingly different basic metaphysical structures of the world, and we're doing the best we can. We're not nowhere with that problem. We have several proposals for understanding it.
No, you're nowhere. You're nowhere. For 100 years, you've been spinning around in a circle of bullshit.
We're very far from having definitively solved it.
And from our chat, Gaming Ball asks, what do you think about string theory? Do you believe in it?
I like to bring it up because, my friends, Michi Aikaku, who, he taught me how to comb my hair this way, so it's a little stylish. My friend Michi Aikaku thinks that he invented string theory, but, he really didn't. He just says he did. But anyway, he's a big fan, so I don't want to say anything offensive like, God damn, that's fucking retarded, because, he'll get offended. So I'll say something like, string theory is like fun. And it's like sort of fucking interesting, and it's like randomly interesting. It's sort of a fucking, I like the Three Bear story. Technically, it's kind of interesting. A little blonde chick. There's beds in it. That kind of gets me a little aroused. Chicks and beds. All right, so she's a little girl. I know that's kind of young. I shouldn't be, that's kind of pedophile-y.
Don't think of myself as particularly qualified to, I don't think I'm somebody who's enough of an expert on string theory for it to be of interest to anybody, whether I believe in it or not. I think it's
Oh, what a cop-out. Why don't you just say, no, it sounds kind of preposterously convoluted, like they completely contrived it because they said, well, we have to make some way to tie the energy to things that create attraction and repulsion. So let's make little rubber bands and we'll call them strings instead. So they vibrate, and that brings them together. They stop vibrating, they fall apart. And then we have like a round ones, and so then they can vibrate out in all directions. Yeah, it sounds really fucking contrived. Why not just say that? Be honest. It sounds like complete made-up shit, okay, to fit some stupid scenario where you found SpongeBob's pants in the bed. And you're like wondering, like, is my wife doing SpongeBob?
And I don't see why there's a need to make a decision like that at this point. String theory has had all sorts of very dramatic triumphs in its history and a number of what might be regarded as setbacks in its history.
Yeah, colossal failures, predicting completely wrong. Yeah, brilliant.
It's a live research program. It's going extremely well in some respects and perhaps less well in others.
What is still? It's going extremely well, except for the part where it's going really badly. I mean, could this guy be a bigger foolish shitter? Why not just paste that on your I'm full of shit, and we'll say things that are just completely shit-filled. That's why my jacket is brown, is to remind you of shit, because I will talk some.
answers, and we're going to have to see how it plays out. The nice thing about science is that it's, scientific theories aren't things that we need to.
The nice thing about science is we keep doing it forever and ever because we keep getting the wrong answer. And so you just go from wrong answer to wrong answer to wrong answer to wrong answer. And, we have a lifetime employment thing, infinite employment, because we just keep getting the wrong answers. And that's so much fun. It's so much fun when you find out you had the wrong answer and then you get a new wrong answer. Yeah, fun. We're having fun, aren't you? No.
Make up our minds about. Our minds get made up for us by the outcomes of experiments that we do. And before we've been able to do those experiments,
experiments.
I think that the appropriate
Experiments you do, and then you lie about what the experiment what actually happened in the experiment, and what the result, how good the results actually were. Like the Eddington experiment, you write big giant New York Times headlines: Einstein proven right by the shittiest experiment done in the last 10 years.
be agnostic about it.
It's interesting people ask if you believe in a theory. Do scientists, would they say that to each other? That, I believe in this
I
theory,
mean,
do you
I
believe in it?
think, I used to have a colleague in the philosophy department at Columbia named Sidney Morgenbesser, who used to make a distinction between believing that and believing in. To say, I believe that such and such is the case, is to say, you've amassed sufficient evidence to be relatively certain about this and so on.
Yeah, so why couldn't you just say that the evidence seems to you to point to no reason to be terribly confident that this string crap means anything? Why don't you just answer the question honestly, you cunt?
And so forth. To say I believe in quantum mechanics or I believe in string theory, I take it is something more like, not necessarily that I believe that it's true, but I believe this is a worthwhile research project, which is worth pursuing, which is worth expending energy on, which is raising questions, which is worth getting to the bottom of. In that sense, I believe.
Yeah, you're not doing that though. You're just trying to prove the existence of unicorns. You're just spending all your time doing one thing to say this is the right answer. And you're not spending any time looking at all the reasons why you should be going down the road that's paved, the one that's obviously right in front of you. Like push is a lot simpler than pull.
I certainly believe in string theory. That's something quite a bit weaker than something like believing that what the theory says is true. I don't think we're in a position to make it.
Oh, what a pile of crap. We're not in a position to decide whether God is Muslim or God is a Jew. We can't figure it out.
Decision about that yet. But I do think it's appropriate to say this is a project that I believe in. This is a project which we're not wasting our time by pursuing.
And this next user.
Horseshit. You are wasting everyone's resources. Pissing money away on gravity waves and fucking Higgs bosons.
Actually has another way of putting it. Her name is Svada Ann. Do you give any weight to simulation theory? Maybe you could say what simulation theory is.
I'm not sure I know what simulation theory is. I mean, there is a large project of
Now, simulation theory means that the world is a simulation. So it's really just holograph theory or the matrix theory.
Of trying to do calculations about the implications of various physical theories by doing computer simulations. And that this is a way of exploring the consequences of theories. This is a way of doing experiments that we can't actually do out in the world to see what the implications of certain theories would be. I think that's an enormously important tool. I'm not sure if this is what the questioner means by simulation theory, but if they mean simulation of theories, of figuring out what the consequences of theories are by doing computer simulations of certain systems, I think
that would be called modeling. Okay, that wouldn't be called simulation theory. It would be called modeling.
A very important tool. It's proven especially important recently in astronomy and cosmology, simulations of the formations of galaxies, so on and so forth. It's given us...
Yes, all of that fake data that you often present as if it's a real picture of a real thing. Like you'll show atoms, little iron atoms all ringed around something, and then you'll have little waves vibrating in the center, and you'll say, look, it's a photograph. We took it with an electron microscope. And you didn't explain that, well, it's not even an electron microscope photo. It's a fucking CGI version of what the electron microscope produced as data. It's a piece of crap. It's not a reality.
very clear answers about which theories seem to be on the right track and which aren't. So I think it's a very important tool if that's what the reviewers, if that's what the questioners are trying.
I wonder if
So these are just the worst. So obviously their viewers are as dumb as the ones here too. So yes, I mean obviously they just can't do anything rational. So obviously they didn't read all the real garbage questions. So anyway, bungee ball. Let's see what this is. Simulation theory has an aspect ratio that beget redundancy of corresponding analytics. Fine. So that sounds like it's right on the cusp of being so fucking relevant.
I also apologize if I get it wrong if they mean the theory that perhaps the universe is a simulation.
Oh, I see that.
I
I see.
maybe what you're
No, that,
asking.
yeah, that
Or maybe
sounds
there's a
right.
third option.
No, I think you're right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, see, so they say it's what I said it was. That's their guess. That's her guess.
I've thought of that. So that's a really interesting.
I wonder if I can get a chick to ask me questions. That'd be pretty cool. Christina Applegate. That's the question.
Question. I think that there's a lot to say about this, and I don't want to get into a really long discussion.
Oh, you just did the silly, stupid answer. Now you're going to give another dumb answer from. Oh, yeah, well, I got a lot to say about the theory that we're in a matrix. Yeah, I think that's really cool stuff. Like double matrix or triple matrix. Like we're in the TV, on TV. Like there's a TV back there, and we're on that TV, and then we're on this TV, and then we're in another TV. Yeah, infinite TV. Yeah, that's cool stuff.
But it does, how shall I put this? You get into a funny cognitive position if you play the following game with yourself. You say, well, let's see, I have all these experiments that I've done or heard about or people have told me about. On the basis of these experiments, I have a certain set of beliefs about what the laws of physics are. The belief that these are the laws of physics implies, among other things, that computers could be constructed consistent with those laws that would simulate a universe like ours.
Right. We're just a platypus's dream, a flying platypus. You know, he's high enough where he can take a little bit of a nap, and we're just his dream. That's a viable theory, right? I mean, I just made it up, but so what? It's viable. It's as good as any other theory, right? So let's all just make up a theory. Let's just make up shit. Just completely made up shit and call it a rational theory.
Where we wouldn't really be looking at the universe. And on the basis of that, I conclude that I may well be a simulation. But I think it's worth noting.
Yes, I think it's worth noting, just like God, that's just made up stories. It doesn't have any evidence. There's absolutely no reason to migrate your affirmative view and say that makes sense because it's no different than Three Bears story or Goldilocks or any other made up pile of shit. It's just stuff we're able to do. We have imagination. I can imagine a platypus with elephant legs that flies. I can do that. And it has an alligator's fucking teeth. And I can imagine all kinds of things. It doesn't mean that they have any connection whatsoever to reality. As a model of reality, they're not even close. They're just made up. Fuckhead. So yes, I can make up matrix, double matrix, triple matrix, infinite matrix. I can just make it up. It doesn't give it any validity as a truth statement. None.
About this kind of chain of reasoning is that the minute you decide that you may be or probably are a simulation, you can no longer claim that the things that you remember as experiments from which you learned facts about the laws of physics really were anything like that. What you're suggesting.
Why? The simulation can do everything we can do, so why wouldn't the experiments just be just as insightful? That's just an idiotic statement. Memories are just memories. If somebody injected, if you could actually fingerprint my brain, its activity, and then like a vibration, it's a vibration and we record it. And then you just pop the vibration on somebody else, a clone. You make a clone of my physical body and then you just transfer the vibration, whatever, the neuron activity, I'll have the same memories even though I didn't actually experience the events. So the knowledge can't go away, even if the event becomes completely disconnected from me actually having experienced it. Even if it's a fictitious and imagined event, it doesn't matter, because to me, the knowledge is still the knowledge. I learned 2 + 2 = 4. I can't forget it. Even if, no matter if you obliterated the memory of it, like you took that part of my brain and just sawed it out, where I learned 2 + 2 = 4, I'm still going to know 2 + 2 = 4. Fuck you.
Thing is that those experiments that you remember were simulations as well, so that they didn't really give you access to what the actual laws of physics are, so that they didn't really give you useful information about the probability that you could.
It's more likely they did that than that you're a simulation, that the simulation story has anything to do with anything other than something you made up. It's much more likely that you made up the simulation story than that you made up the memory of doing experiments in the simulation. Which one's more probable? That those experiments were fallacious, or that your theory that you're a simulation is fallacious? We're back to the God argument, right? I mean, this is just as stupid as some asshole saying, well, how could we get here if something didn't make us? What made the maker, you fucking idiot?
Be a simulation in the first place. So I think these kinds of chains of reasoning lead to a situation which philosophers refer to as a cognitive instability.
Yeah. They're gonna kill me. They're literally going to kill me, and I don't have any way of suing them for it. This is too stupid. He shouldn't even be allowed to use the word cognitive. He has violated the rules of being a cognizer so badly.
So I think the usual chains of reasoning which lead to the conclusion that we're a simulation are cognitive.
Fallacious. That's the word you should have put there. Right there. You should have said, I think they're fallacious. It's as fallacious as having conversations about Wile E. Coyote and, you know, Bugs Bunny and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a waste of everybody's fucking goddamn time and neural space. You really shouldn't be combining Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote with fucking conversations about the fundamental nature of our existence. It's stupid.
Unstable in this way, and I'm not sure they're to be trusted. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of a very deep and very interesting problem.
Yes, the problem that people can't separate their imagination from facts and evidence.
Thank you for clearing that up. I think your interpretation of the question was right.
I hope so for the chatter. I always think, well, I'm here to make you to know. Regardless, I still have to do that in the morning.
Laura Duttero. Okay, I have to remember that name.
True. That's true. But we want to, we're involved with science because we'd like to know what's really going on.
Right.
Independent.
You'd like to, but you don't have a clue. Sitting on it isn't going to work.
Of its impact on our practical lives. Right.
And this next question, I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce this person's name. So they ask, what is the philosophical view of the non-existing center of the universe? If it expanded from a
non-existent center of the universe. How do you think about non-existent center? Well, it had a center when it started. You're just saying it doesn't have one when it finishes.
point? Why isn't there a center?
Oh, well, let's see how to talk about that.
There has to be a point of origin. So you could at least say that, right? But I mean, this whole expansion thing, that doesn't make any sense, right? Because it expands and somehow the cosmic background radiation moves with the expansion and then expands at superluminal speeds, which again just seems like, well, didn't you just make that up? When did we have the power? When does the universe have the power to do that thing?
Quickly, the idea is, or at least here's a sort of metaphor for the idea. Think of imagine being a two-dimensional creature,
Oh no. Well, we're going to jump over this because this gets evil. But I mean, I just mean when they start doing this, imagine in 2 dimensions reality, because then it's just you end up with this stupid bent space nonsense that doesn't have anything to do with reality, doesn't have anything to do with the rules you're supposed to be describing. The ones in 3 dimensions, the ones that have to work in 3 dimensions. Bending space doesn't work in 3 dimensions, for fuck's sake.
The surface of the balloon is just expanding outwards from this center in 3-dimensional space, but that center isn't a point anywhere in the space that's accessible to these 2-dimensional beings on the surface. Good. Take that.
Yeah, so just more a horseshit answer, right? It's not acceptable, except, yeah, you just fly your spaceship that way, and you go back to where it started. Just fly that way.
Picture, jack the whole thing up by 1 dimension. So we're sitting on not on the 2-dimensional surface of a 3-dimensional sphere, but on the 3-dimensional surface of a 4-dimensional sphere.
Oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Time has nothing to do with this. Nothing. It's not a place, for fuck's sake. Not a dimension.
You'll get an idea of how it could be the case that the universe could have exploded out of a point, but that point is not to be located anywhere in what we currently call the space that we live in.
Yeah, well, that's just horseshit. So you're just full of shit. When we look 13 billion light years into the past, so to speak, those photons came from a place, and that place still fucking exists, and you people are just full of shit.
We actually started chatting about this before you arrived a little bit. Does this question have anything to do with infinity, in the sense that you can't be the center of something that's infinite?
Oh, no. Please don't use that word. Oh, God damn it.
There are lots of questions of infinity that come up in connection with cosmology, but this kind of a situation can be realized in a perfectly finite way. Imagine a balloon that has a perfectly definite finite size, but it's getting larger and larger as time goes by. The center from which the balloon is expanding is not going to be part of the space that these 2-dimensional creatures live in.
Right. So this next question, I want to thank Ramosin for asking, because I've always
Expanding anus.
been curious about it myself. How is energy conserved in cosmological expansion?
Oh, cosmological expansion. Well, obviously, see, that's where it's not conserved, in the sense that obviously you make it go faster than the speed of light. Well, you've broken conservation all the fucking hell.
I'm not sure that very simple, there's a couple of things to say about this. In general relativity, the meaning of the notion of total energy of the world, and consequently the conservation of energy of the world, is a very...
Yes. In general relativity, we have never to account for motion. Motion happens, just happens, okay? So we don't have to account for it. The nothing pushes the something. There is no conservation of energy rules. Fuck, you can't see how that's already obvious. For 100 years, we've been telling you that the Earth moves into the sun, not because of any force. There's nothing making it happen. It just fucking happens. So what's the conservation of the it just fucking happens? There's no rule that you have to conserve it just fucking happens. We don't need any goddamn energy to expand the universe. Fuck that. No energy required.
Non-trivial business. So even the idea of asking whether conservation of energy is true or false under those circumstances is complicated. But let me put those complications aside for the moment and just say, if you have, say,
yeah, my balloon was also orange. That's interesting. So he said balloon, right? I thought orange balloon. And then the balloon did actually turn into a giant anus.
Explosion in which a bunch of matter that's gravitationally, the pieces of matter that are gravitationally attracted to each other start flying outwards. The way the conservation of energy...
Yeah, it's by magic. They just pulled themselves out. I'll just pull myself out of the quicksand. Yeah, that works. Why not? It's magic land. Anything's possible. We don't have to be rational or reasonable. Just pull yourself out of the quicksand.
Works is that as they fly outwards, and their potential energy gets larger and larger, they slow down under the influence of one another's gravitation, so their kinetic energy gets smaller and smaller, in precisely, and these two variations exactly that.
And it makes absolutely no sense, because the only way that could happen is over distances that would be insanely preposterous. It's like the gravity stopping the light from escaping the universe and then the light slowly moving back. It would only take a bazillion trillion years.
One another, so that as the potential.
That's why they need dark matter to fix it, right? I mean, they got stuff moving way too fast, way too high a velocity to ever fucking be attracted. So they have to invent a bunch of 98% of the universe is made out of other shit that we don't have any idea where it is or what it is or how it is. But it must be there, because that's the only way we can make this crap that we're spewing make sense, is we have to create a 98% solution. We have to make up an invisible man that's 98% of the fucking picture. So just imagine this video where 98% of it is fake, okay, and you only get to have 2% that's the real me. Oh, this is so fucking stupid.
Energy is getting larger because they're getting farther apart. The kinetic energy is getting smaller because their acceleration outwards is slowing down more and more. And so the total energy, which is the sum of the potential and the kinetic energy, remains conserved.
Now, the total energy is just the amount of energy still pushing things together and the amount of energy trapped in the things that are stuck together. That's the total energy, dumbasses.
And so this next question is probably like there are thousands of years of your field behind this one. Out of Outer Space wants to know, do you believe we have free will?
Oh, fuck. So the obvious answer, you have to spend a little bit of time thinking about the words free will. And so you say, okay, well, what's a free and what's a will? So you separate them first. That's kind of like being a puzzle person or something. You would say, how do I solve this problem of free will? Take the two words and separate them a little bit. I say, well, what's will? Well, that's just what I decide to do compulsion-wise. And what is free? So free is retarded. Free just means there's no bars in front of me. Free means like I'm free to walk to the bathroom, but I can't fly to the bathroom. I'm free to drink this water, but there's no water. So I'm not free to drink it because there's no water. So free is a bullshit word. Free just means from what? So you're saying from where does my will come from? Does it come from angels? Or does it come from the fact that I know that 2 + 2 = 4? Which one is controlling my will? Angels? Or my knowledge that 2 + 2 = 4? There. That's the answer.
So that's a really complicated question.
We cannot outsource. That would be your answer. Just say something like, look, we can't outsource our decisions. They have to be made in your head. You calculate, you decide. If you practice the piano, you play the piano. You never practice the piano, you don't do anything good with pianos. It has to go in before it comes out. Get it? Knowledge in, action out. Nothing in, shit out. Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah. Use that old cliche. That'll work.
There are various attitudes in the history of philosophy toward what you might mean by freedom of will. There's what's sometimes called the libertarian conception of freedom.
Yes, randomness is not freedom. So randomness just means any error will do. All decisions are the same. Good, bad, no difference. Just anyone will work. No, that's not going to be anything good. You want an intelligent will, not a free will, right? That's the important word here. I don't want a random will. I want an informed will. I want to make good decisions. How do you make good decisions? good information. I mean, is this that complicated?
Of will, which seems to demand that there couldn't be any external laws governing what we do or what we decide, or so on and so forth. And there are much more modest notions of free will, going back to philosophers like David Hume, who think that all it means to say that I did something freely is not that whether or not I did it wasn't determined by the initial physical conditions of the universe, but a more practical sense of whether I did something that was in accord with my desires at that moment, or rather whether somebody was forcefully moving my hand when I did it or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, it's just a complete trivialization of the entire concept. So yes, let's just forget about dealing with the words as they're put together and just pretend that they mean something else. Do I feel like I'm free? You bet I do. There, I have free will then, because I feel like I'm free. That's all that matters. How do you feel about physics? How do I feel about that? Let's just answer those. Do you like photons? Do you think electrons are homosexual? Huh? Do you think protons voted for Trump?
See any reason not to believe. I don't see any reason from physics not to believe in this more modest Jungian version of freedom of will.
Oh yeah, just be a slimy, lying cunt. Just completely break language. Just say we're all going to turn it into wishy-washy. Wishy-washy, 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 wishy-washy. Fuck having any serious conversations ever where words actually have to mean something. And you're a fucking scientist. 2 fucking doctorates. And this is the best you can fucking goddamn do. We need a GoFundMe page to get Gary an audience with these asshats. Frankly, I want to be the Inquisitioner. Why should you be allowed to continue living, you lying scumbucket? And I'd like to hear his answer.
I think there may be very profound threats from physics to a more libertarian conception of freedom of will. And I guess I go back and forth in my own mind as to which of those conceptions is really the one that we take ourselves to have.
Yes, we all know that cats are cats. They're not bananas or squirrel monkeys or some other. No, they're cats. Okay, they're cats. Yeah, and you are what you've learned, and obviously you've learned a bunch of bullshit. So you spew it, garbage in, garbage the fuck out.
When we're lying in bed at night and thinking about what we'd like to do the next day. So,
oh yes, there was a brilliant pile of philosophizing there. So he actually went to college to learn philosophy so he could just say something this mushy.
That's a question that I'm very puzzled about. I think there's a very real tension between what we discovered.
Between cause and effect and, the fact that I don't like being called a robot. Well, too bad. That's what you are. You're a fucking robot, retard. Programming in, action out, period. End of the fucking story. That's just the truth. Accept it. Deal with it.
About the fundamental laws of physics and our conception of ourselves as having something called freedom.
Right. Freedom not to be me. I have the freedom not to be me. I can be somebody else entirely. Well, I can use a false pseudo voice and pretend I'm not me. That's the same thing, right? When I pretend not to be me, I'm not being me, right? It's not me pretending. It's freedom.
And it's something that I continue to be puzzled about. And I don't want to pretend that I'm more sure about it than I am.
Oh, I mean, damn, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I could go to the free-averse and have a free choice where I didn't have to pay attention to 2 + 2 = 4, and I didn't have to pay attention to that thing like it would really hurt to stick a hot, glowing hunk of steel up my ass. Maybe I could go to the fake-averse and they would teach me that it doesn't really hurt, and then I would be free to do it here because I wouldn't have any knowledge that it was going to hurt, and that would be really cool. wait a minute. No, that would be stupid. Why the fuck would I want to be free to be stupid? Being free to be stupid is stupid. God, I hate these people.
Had a program on free will at the World Science Festival
Right.
several years ago, and the panelists who all study this from the brain perspective
Right.
of physics kind of all spent the whole 90 minutes saying why all this evidence shows that we don't have free will,
Right.
and then at the end the moderator asked, okay, personally, the person, you
Right.
believe in free will, and they all said yes.
Right.
Oh, great. Isn't that wonderfully hypocritical? I mean, it's just, yes, you are all a bunch of religious kooks. It doesn't take much to push you into your religious comfort zone, right back into your religious chairs. You're all just screaming religious kooks. Oh, I can't possibly accept it. I'm a robot and I've been programmed. Oh my God, it's impossible for me to accept it. Oh, you mean it was inevitable a million years ago that I was going to be sitting in this chair, moving my face back and forth? Oh, I can't accept it. I don't really know why I can't accept it, though, because it's totally meaningless to the fact that I wasn't alive a million years ago to prejudge my existence and say, what a fucktard. So why does it goddamn matter to me? Because frankly, from my perspective, I didn't know I was going to do that. Isn't that good enough for you retards? Isn't the fact that you don't see the future, isn't that good enough reason for you to say, oh, it's going to be a surprise? Yes, it will surprise you. Even though it shouldn't, it will. And that's just a fact. So why don't you just enjoy the fact that you're going to be surprised? Instead of complaining that the truth is, it wasn't a surprise in reality.
Right. So one of the things you're supposed to do if you're a philosopher is not compartmentalize yourself into, in this way, and try to have.
Yeah, don't limit yourself to facts and rationality. Just break logic wherever you can. I mean, there's lots of facts we can just sweep under rugs and just pretend they don't exist because that makes us feel more special, and that's more important than the truth. Feeling special, more important than the truth. Remember that, all you little baby dinosaurs out there.
Try to find a way of answering questions that's going to satisfy you, in all the possible ways you might be asked about it, and in all the possible contexts you might be asked about it. And I think it's very...
what are all these contexts? Oh, they asked me when I was on the toilet, and so, yeah, I had a different answer than when I was, in my serious chair.
Very puzzling and hard to figure out.
Oh,
So this question,
fuck. This is what I keep saying. The idiocracy is bad, but the state of the intellectua is worse. Fear the intellectuals because they will not save us. Having a retard drive the bus is bad, but having these phantasmagorical, I'll just imagine it done, bozos driving the bus is even a bigger train wreck.
comes from KJ Brunia. They, I guess, saw an interesting discussion between you and Sean Carroll. And they said you had some thoughts on the notion of probability in the many worlds interpretation. Can you elaborate?
All right, many worlds interpretation, which means every single time a photon hits anything, a new universe is created. Oh, fuck.
Yes, very simply, I think that the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is an interpretation which makes it very hard to make sense of these familiar probabilistic claims of quantum mechanics that one of the earlier questioners was asking about. We think that quantum mechanics...
I thought it was a solution to the probable reason. So now it's not a solution? I thought it just fixed your problem because it basically just says, well, just do over. Just do the universe over if the photon does something out of the ordinary. Just do a different universe for that photon.
Makes the world chancy. But on the many worlds interpretation, all the things that might happen for sure. So that...
See, but this is the bullshit, right? Because we know by Feynman's own math that the probabilities are two spirals, essentially, right? The probabilities go out, and one curls this way, and the other one curls this way. And those two things are essentially perfect reciprocals of each other. That means they all cancel out. And none of those things ever happen. So everything in the parts that are the same essentially cancel out. So that's the truth of the mathematics. So it's like the double slit thing in a sense of where they use Huygens, and they basically say all the waves cancel out. Okay. And that's what creates the two waves in the single slit. And so it's the same sort of logic, and you can sort of get it, that everything on the right side cancels out the equal thing on the left side. So you can sort of get it, that none of those things ever do happen. So this whole multiverse bullshit doesn't even make sense mathematically, because the math has already said they're reciprocals. They essentially, the left side annihilates the right side, or the right side annihilates the left side, and none of those events ever happen. So that's why the idiotic stuff, like Feynman will point out, that in the quantum mechanics, like in the probability, they actually consider it possible for a beam of light, right, to reflect in an impossible angle. That is, it goes this way and reflects to a recorder over here. Now, it's not possible that a photon bounced off that part of the mirror and got to this photo multiplier. There's no physical laws that allow that to happen realistically. It just can't happen realistically. And yet it's in the math as if it did, because they just say, let's just include everything that can possibly radiate and will allow it to reflect in an impossible way. But again, it's not really a possibility because it was already annihilated. I mean, he's just been, they're dishonest to their own math.
So that the actual evolution of the world is completely deterministic. And that makes it difficult to understand what all this talk about chances could possibly be about. So I think there have been many interesting attempts to come to grips with this problem.
I mean, this is just so stupid, because you could understand it in so many simple ways. You know, if I just took a teeter-totter thing and you just spun it, you know, so it's just a spinning piece of wood. You can understand I could throw a soccer ball in there, and, you know, if I have the thing spinning at a constant rate, I would find that I throw a soccer ball in, and there's a certain probability it goes this way, and a certain probability it goes this way, and a certain probability it goes this. It's not that complicated. You don't need to make up all this crap to say there's a mechanism that's causing the probability, a physical mechanism.
Sean, who you mentioned, is the author of one such attempt. There are other attempts by people like David Deutsch and David Wallace, but I think it's a hard problem. I'm not satisfied with any of the proposed solutions that have been offered so far. I think it's hard to see in a fully deterministic picture of the world, like the many worlds interpretation, how we're going to be able to make sense of these chancy or statistical elements.
These chances. So he doesn't like it because it doesn't have free will in it. He doesn't like it because it's too deterministic. An amazing statement.
Elements of quantum mechanics, those are the ones we encounter in our laboratories when we go and do experiments on subatomic particles. I think there's a real problem.
So just more lies about how they have a ton of experiments that demonstrate that somehow there's real randomness and that there's not cause and effect. Somehow they have an experiment that proves no cause. There was no cause for that. It's just completely random. They have a real random generator. Bullshit. 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 Fucking bullshit.
And that's what some of the conversation with Sean that I think the questioner was referring to was about.
And I think this came up with Ali on the program regarding the multiverse.
Yes, that's a little bit of a different one, but I think there are similar problems there. These multiverses are once again claims that all of these various.
Oh, so she had to get him back on the subject, which is the multiverse. We already did that. Stupid.
Different universes are definitely there. So questions about the probability we should associate with this or that universe are very hard to make sense of.
So this question comes from Shivam Shrivastava. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. What suggestions would you have for a physics undergraduate like this person on what to explore more thoroughly?
Well,
what suggestions would you have? Inquire of your professor certain things like, well, how do you bend light with the lens that's the wrong shape? How come the Huygensy thing creates 2 waves in the single slit, but only creates 2 waves in the double slit. Isn't it like if I have one slit and it's creating 2 waves, and I have one slit over here that's creating 2 waves, how come when I brings them closer to each other, they don't do that no more? How come it is like that? That's what you should do.
Oh, there's a lot of wonderfully open questions in physics. It depends where your tastes take you. There's, you know, there are very interesting things going on in solid state physics nowadays at the more fundamental level. There are very interesting things going on in string theory, and there are very interesting things going on at the sort of boundary, which is the place that I work, the boundary between theoretical physics and philosophy. There are a lot of questions.
Yes, why don't you just explain to me where the interference happens in the interferometer? Please explain. Where does it happen? where do the photons wave function, go in 2 directions, then recombine into a photon? Where does that fucking happen exactly?
About what the foundational structure of physics is.
How exactly do you turn matter into bent space? Einstein never said that could happen.
Of which we've been discussing today. I think those are very open questions and questions that are being very fruitfully pursued now as well.
Yeah, I don't see any fruit. Okay, you don't make any fruit. It's all flowers. Magical flowers on the balloon of expansion. Flowers on the expanding balloon of fun.
So I guess my advice is to go with whatever piques your interest. That's what you're going to be able to work hard at. That's what you're going to turn out to be good at.
Oh, what a generically bullshit answer. It's okay to do anything but silver lining and such. It'll all work out for the best, even if you get run over by a car or raped by some, you know, nasty future Supreme Court justice. No big deal.
That's what you'll be able to make a contribution.
What do you think you would do if you were a physics undergrad right now?
That's a good question. It was the I guess it's a really good question.
Why don't you study the interferometer and explain how it works? Yeah, that's a good project. It's a social myth that these people are smart. Well, I don't know. I don't think it's a myth. I mean, I think they do have the IQ shit and all that crap, but obviously there's smart people probably in the bowels of the Vatican. I mean, smart people can be totally misguided. They can be fucking truth molesters. Factophiles.
Yes, there's a lot of it. This relates to our panel here. There's been an enormous amount of a feeling of intellectual openness and intellectual experimentation.
Oh, intellectual experimentation. I wonder what the fuck that means. Oh yeah, I stick my head up his ass, and then he stuck his head up my ass. Yes, it was really interesting. I mean, I was so used to sticking my head up my own ass, and it was a really enlightening experience to have my head up other people's asses.
Going on in things like the foundations of cosmology and the origins of the universe. I think that might be something I'd be interested in.
Well, they're by definition smart. It's just that they have a huge amount of poo on the smart. The smart is just covered in poo. The error code, right? It's like the operating system, right? You can have all the greatest software in the world, but if the operating system's a piece of shit, you're fucked. So they have lots of programs, but they don't got any fucking basic common sense to use it.
All right, and this question is going to take us sort of right to the edge of where a lot of quantum physicists are right now. So,
why are you so fat?
Gaurav Mandula wants to know, is space-time or are space and time fundamental entities? Are they emergent entities from something more fundamental?
That's a really good question.
Oh, fuck. Yes. Time is just the byproduct of the fact that motion is not instantaneous. There, done. That's all it is. No dimensions. Just a byproduct of moving too fucking slow.
We don't know the answer.
I just, yeah, I do, apparently. So maybe you could ring me up and I'll let you know the answer.
I would say that there are, from several different quarters, tentative kinds of evidence pushing more in the direction of the necessity of thinking of space and time as non-fundamental, but rather emergent sorts of entities.
Right. They have to be emergent from the ether. So just, why don't you fuckers admit it? You're just etherists.
These are really intriguing. It's really amazing that we're able to begin to develop pictures of how that could be the case, and we're able to read.
Yes, you're not developing them out of film, though. You're developing them out of crayon. They're crayon pictures.
Season with pictures of how that could be the case. I think it's much too early to say at this point, but I do think that if you had to point to trends recently, more and more reasons have emerged for suspecting that space and time as we know them may not be fundamental entities and may have to be looked at as emerging from some more basic structure.
Right, the ethers, the 114 ether fields that are perpetrating and such.
This next question, I think, gets to a lot of the discussion on the program about the beginning of the universe from Bob Aldo.
Oh, so again, that is my pet peeve, right? I mean, fuck physics, right? Fuck trying to deal with what's right in front of you. So instead of like, say this, if somebody brings in a broken chair and they say, could you fix this broken chair? And instead you just waste your time trying to figure out, I wonder where that tree was that this chair used to be. Let's go find that tree. Let's go find where the tree grew and who cut the tree down and how the tree and what exactly part of the tree this wood was made out of. Let's go find the answer to a question that couldn't possibly have anything to do with what our project is, which is understanding how to fix a chair.
Why should it ever occur to us that somehow nothing existing should be more or less likely than something existing?
That's a really good question.
No, it's fucktarded. It's just fucktarded. The answer is going to be something completely stupid. The universe doesn't do anything smart because it doesn't have a brain. So it just farts. It just cracks. It just breaks. And that's when there's something. Oh, I made a something. Whoops. That's all the universe can do. It just whoopses. Whoops is going to be the fucking answer, you fucking idiots.
That's a really good question. I think this is something that goes much, much farther back in the history of human speculation than just science. The idea that there not being anything. So here are two different attitudes. Attitude one, the situation in which there's nothing is a special and privileged situation in the following sense. There being nothing doesn't call for an explanation. Okay. Whereas there being something.
Yeah, there's no one to be calling for the explanation. So that's the catch-22. Nobody can call for the explanation. So yes, you have one in the sense that, hey, there's nothing. But you can't use it because there's no one asking the question because there's nothing. So that's the sucky part. And then the something thing, oh, there's something to ask the question, but there's nothing to answer it with. Like a fact.
Does call for an explanation. And so if you're going to understand the world in a satisfying way, you need to know how the something got there from the nothing. Okay? The nothing.
No, you don't. You don't need to know any of this shit. The simple answer is it's going to be just as dumb as the syphilis virus or microbe. It's just going to be an explanation that just says this is why it exists. Because this happened and then that happened and then that happened. And all of those things that happened won't have anything to do with and God said, let there be human douchery.
The thing that didn't stand in need of explanation. But you could take quite a different attitude, which is there not being anything and there being a golf ball and there being a planet and there being a galaxy. All these things are just different states the world could be in. Okay.
What can happen, can happen. That's all there is. No other answer necessary. It obviously could, and it did.
Okay, and no one of them is any more a priori plausible than any other one. No one of them, in and of itself, is, demands an explanation more or less than any one of them. The world could.
No, that's stupid. Okay. I mean, obviously the nothing doesn't, I mean, it's obviously a simple thing to explain why there's nothing. It's really more complicated to explain why there's something in the middle of my nothing. So you can't even get that right. I mean, something obviously just sticks out and says, well, I have to be explained because I'm a something. You have to explain some things. You don't have to explain nothings. Nothings don't have to be explained. Some things have to be explained. Oh, God, you can't even get that right.
In any number of ways. Once again, there's a golf ball, there's a planet, there's a building, there's nothing, there's a galaxy, yada, yada, yada. One could take the attitude that all of these are possible states of the world, and that it's a mistake to insist.
Yes, that's what there was. There was possibility, and unfortunately, it was realized, and we have fucktardia all over the place.
On getting ourselves stories about how the world could have gotten there from nothing, as if nothing somehow has a special status vis-a-vis explanation, that it's the situation of the world that for some reason.
Yes, it would be a very nice default because it's so fucking simple. I mean, there's just no denying that fucking nothing has to be simpler than something. How can you possibly make a something that's simpler than a nothing? Come on. It's like as logical as 1 is half as much as 2. You know that, don't you? 1 is half as much as 2, so you know that 0 is got to be less than 1. Fuck.
Stands less in need of an explanation than any other particular.
You said that already, and it's dumb. It's dumb.
So Nick L. asks, what's beyond the walls of the universe? If it's nothing, but nothing doesn't exist, then what might be on?
Yes, if there's nothing at the end of the universe, right? If the universe is open, okay, then the little photons are gone, okay? They've got escape velocity. They're not coming back. They're gone. So obviously everything here is going to get cold as fuck eventually because all the photons are gone.
So there isn't. So think again of this image of the two-dimensional surface of a three-dimensional sphere. You have these two-dimensional creatures making their way around in this two-dimensional surface.
So he's cheating again. Let's inaccurately describe the three-dimensional reality, and then we'll just do the 4 dimensions at the end. So we'll just play with 2 dimensions and 4 dimensions and completely avoid the real world with the 3. Shit.
Of the three-dimensional sphere. Look what happens to these creatures. If they walk in any direction in what looks to them to be a straight line for long enough, they never hit a wall, okay? But eventually they come back to where they started, okay? So
it must be that that's the way the universe works based on the law of it must be because we like to compare apples and oranges and say they're the same thing. Fuck.
Their world, the space of their world is finite, okay? But not because they ever run into a wall, okay, such that they have to ask what lies beyond this wall. The manifestation in their life.
Right. So there's absolutely no logical reason to believe that everything that goes left ends up coming right. No evidence that that is the rule of the universe. No evidence that it's a 2-dimensional sphere or some other kind of bullshit. No evidence whatsoever. So it's just a bullshit answer to the question. The question is, if it goes that way and that goes that way, all right, and there's no way for them to come back this way, all right, then aren't they gone forever? They're not coming back.
Of their space being finite isn't that they run into a wall, but just that if they walk long enough in the same direction, they find themselves back where they started. They find themselves returning to regions that they've already been to. And they notice that whatever direction they walk off in, after they walk a certain distance in a certain
right, so this is just made up. It's just like the stupid crap of Einstein's, right? That you have this convergence and every single material object is sucking this space, and somehow the space just keeps filling the void where you're sucking it. So somehow the little material bits suck the space and their anus is out in the outside of the universe and it's farting it back in. So they eat it in the middle here and they shit it back into the system. Now I just made that the fuck up, but that's exactly what they propose as a theory of existence. Horseshit. Good example. Circular horseshit.
straight line, they find they come back to where they started. So they conclude that the total amount of space in their universe is finite, but this is not because there's anything like a wall or a boundary. This is an amazing idea of how the world could be finite, but
Yeah, just an amazing idea of just complete made up fantasy, just a three-bear story of reality. Let's just pretend the universe is bent, and so everything that goes this way comes back this way. Let's just pretend. We don't have any evidence, but just pretend.
boundaryless. And this is something we owe to Einstein and to his general theory of relativity.
Yes, because it works on the same circular bullshit logic of we don't have any facts indicating it works this way, but we'll just make it up. We'll just have pull, and we'll just call it pull. Yeah, pull happens. No energy. Stuff just does it. It knows how to pull without, doesn't pull on anything, but it just pulls. Pull, pull, pull. Magic pull power.
The first possibilities of imagining a situation like this.
So there is no restaurant at the end.
They're just invisible man. Again, just invisible man answers. These are the worst detectives ever in the history of humankind. They're just coming into court and saying, oh, it's clear the invisible man who did the crime because it's obvious there's no evidence and he didn't leave any footprints. And yes, there's that guy's DNA on the knife, but invisible man still did it.
Yeah, so there's no edge of the universe. Once again, think of these creatures. They just keep walking around. Everything is normal. There's never any sense of.
Oh God, it's just made up. He's just talking completely out of his ass. Why don't you just sit up and bend over and pull your pants down and just demonstrate that you're just talking out of your ass. Not a single fact. Just ass talk.
Coming to an edge. What you come to is not an edge, but a place where you were before.
Just you just might as well say, and the bear put on his hat and started smoking his peep, in his Nikes. He's just making it up.
Just a few more questions here. This one comes from Ishan Bihar. Do you think it is necessary to strive for a complete theory which is mathematically consistent with our notion of past, present, and future?
Complete theory of present and past. So again, more irrelevancy with this time shit. The complete theory of time is it takes time to move. Period. That's the complete theory. Complete. You do not move instantaneously. Therefore, we call the slowness of your movement, we call that time.
I don't think it's necessary, but I think that's what the scientific project does strive to do. And
again, the scientific project. We're all part of the scientific project, which is a big fucking Scientology Dianetic sham where any day now they're going to start talking about we found a reptilian. I mean, you people are so full of shit. Yes, and he was walking that way and showed up this way. He must be a reptilian from the past.
I think that's an interesting project to attend. Often you hear people say that science, just like all kinds of other ways of knowing, involves a leap of faith.
No, you got it so wrong. It involves evidence, reason. You have to have a reason to say something is a likely or a good or a satisfactory explanation. You have to have a reason. And your only reason is we have no idea, but we can make up something just as ridiculous as the religious kooks. Flying platypuses with gaping vaginas.
An initial act of faith that there is going to be such a description of the world. That's actually not the way I look at it. It seems to me that the question science is investigating.
Yes, there will be an accurate. I've done the accurate. You just don't know it yet because the determinism takes so fucking goddamn long. So I've given you the goddamn fucking answer and you're sitting around doing your little doofy shit, not knowing that determinism is already going to decide that, yes, you wasted a bunch of time doing this bullshit instead of just listening to me. I have the answers, you dumb fucks.
is precisely the question of whether a project like that is at the end of the day going to be able to pan out. That strikes me as a really interesting question. One that
yes, can we make up complete bullshit and then mix it in a bowl with some dog shit and produce something edible? No, that won't happen. So I already predicted that for you too. That's not the proper way to bake a cake. The physics cake has shit for ingredients. Thanks to you, people who make shit up and put it in the bowl.
I'm moved to investigate, and one that I'd like to know the answer to. So that's why this project appeals to me, not because it seems to me that there's any a priori necessity that such a project has to work, or that such a project is one that we're somehow.
So he doesn't care whether, I don't care if we get the right answer or not. I just like doing answers and just, it's not a test. There's no test here. So you don't have to obey, like, say, the thought experiment. The word problem says, well, Jane has 50 cents and Sally has 25 cents. How much money do they have out there? You don't have to obey these rules. You just make up some other shit and say, well, Jane is a little slut and the other girl, well, she's got a gaping vagina.
Now obliged to follow. I think it's an interesting project to follow.
And from Raturel, what do you think about the hard problem of consciousness? And also, just to follow up on the easy one.
Oh, the hard problem of consciousness. Again, not really a hard problem. You're experiencing it. It obviously, right? There's like part of the cause and effect thing would be the idea of reward and punishment. Like those would be really important ways to make something do something, is to reward it or punish it. But you can't reward and punish it until you can make it punishable, right? And then once you've invented the whip, who needs the carrots? Take away the whip and the person will say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So all you need is the whip. Take away the whip. Oh, that's like a carrot. Less torture becomes, I'm winning. I only got tortured this much. Yeah, I'm so far ahead. I'm only up to my chest in the quicksand. Those guys are up to their eyes. I'm winning.
Is it computable and can it be derived in physics?
So I think the hard problem of consciousness is a really hard problem.
No, it's an illusion in your head. But as Einstein would say, it's one motherfucking hell of an illusion.
It's hard for me to envision any physical development which would make it clear to me why the brain state associated with, say, seeing a red blotch in front of me feels to me the way it does. Okay.
It feels that way because the feelings are motivating. I just can't believe it. I can't motivate you with an idea. I have to motivate you with a feeling. Feelings create the atmosphere. They make conductive or unconductive. They are the thing the behavior will move through.
I think there's a real kind of apples and oranges kind of problem there. Somebody wants to tell me that a particular particle in my head going around clockwise corresponds to the feeling of green, and the particle going counterclockwise corresponds to the feeling of red. I can perfectly well imagine theories which will tell us that when the particle is going clockwise, I'm going to have green kinds of physical behaviors. Say I'm going to step on the gas if I'm in the car, or I'm going to utter the sound green, or something like that. But there's a further question, which is what people are referring to as the hard problem.
No, another simple way to look at the hard problem is we have two brains. Feeling brain, interpretation of feeling brain. One brain is reacting to the feelings, okay? And the feeling brain is reacting to the environment, which the thinking brain is part of. So it's a feedback loop between two things. Two separately programmed things are doing this. That's consciousness.
Why it's that particular physical activity in my head which somehow gives rise to the greenness feeling rather than the redness feeling. It's very difficult for me to imagine.
But we know that's just a reflex, okay? It's just a reflex, a programmed reflex. The feeling is a programmed reflex, like, you poke the skin a certain depth, you hit the nerves, it triggers. It's a reflex. The emotional feelings are the same thing, triggers. Your past experience with the color red will decide what you feel when you see red, or blue, or brown, or pink, or whatever. All of those things are just programmed associations. The feeling is it gives it a value statement. That's it. It's a value statement. And now you have to deal with the value statement. It says bad or good. So it allows you to make a decision like in our real world, we had to make a decision like, okay, there's a bunch of bears around. I can hear them in the woods, but we ain't got no food. So I got to go out and get some food. So I got to measure two values, getting torn up by the bear and starving to death. And I have to figure out which one can I, it's a value statement. So I have to measure them based on how I feel about getting eaten by a bear and how I feel about, well, maybe missing one meal won't be the end of the world. I'll wait till tomorrow morning and get some berries.
How purely physical developments could give us a convincing answer to a question like that. And the hard problem of consciousness is one of the many very deep questions about the world.
See, they called it the hard problem because they were trying to say, why would nature make us conscious when it could have just made us more mechanically, obviously robots? But obviously a robot wouldn't have a motivator. A robot would say, why do I have to run now? So it would break down the programming. It would say, it's not important. It would see the bear and it would say, well, if I got no hunger, why do I have to get the food again? Oh, because I'll die, but I won't suffer when I die? Well, who cares? Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it creates value. We can't make value any other way. It has to create it. The value doesn't exist in the things in the world. The only value that exists is how do you feel? That's valuable. Everything else is not valuable except the capacity of a feeling thing to feel. That's the only value in the universe. So the joke is your brain is giving you the illusion of value. It's making things valuable. My nicotine is valuable and precious. Oh, the precious. See, it's valuable because of what it's going to, because of what I need. That's why it's valuable. It's not valuable for any other reason than it'll make me feel good or bad, vice versa. That's it. That's why we're conscious, because it works. It creates value and it forces us to jump in front of cars to save our kids or do some other stupid, dumbass thing. Like get involved with women and go through all that fucking hassle, the succubus control, all that shit happens because you need to fucking polish your penis.
I'm very puzzled about it.
So I think this is going to be our last question today. It comes from KJ Runia. What made you decide to go from theoretical physics to working on the philosophical foundations of physics?
So,
I don't think he's done either one of those things. This guy is just such a douche.
it was at the time when I was getting my PhD in physics, I had been interested since high school in exactly this borderline between physics and philosophy, or borderline is maybe not a good word.
Yes.
This intersection between physics and
No, there's no intersection. There's there's conversation about material function, and then there's conversation about meaning. Two separate subjects.
In a way, I always saw theoretical physics as a way of doing philosophy, a rigorous, clear, logically demanding way of approaching very deep philosophical questions about what time is and what space is.
Oh, God, those are not philosophical questions. Those are physics questions, and you have the wrong fucking answers. Yeah, well, fuck you, McCule CS. Your comments suck. The voice of dissent is a lot more reasonable than you are, you stupid Weasley piece of shit.
And whether or not we're dreaming and so on and so forth. So that's always what I was interested in. And
I mean, it's perfectly correct to keep making religious references. This is just a religion that just made all of these fairy tales the fuck up. They got tiny, they got shreds of evidence. I heard a story. I mean, the evidence isn't any better than the Shroud of Turin or something. They have such crappy evidence. Crappy.
I pursued an education in theoretical physics and got a PhD in theoretical physics. But at the time when I got my PhD, which was in the very beginning of the 1980s, fashions within theoretical physics were generally very hostile to these foundational questions. That's a long story, and it arose for all kinds of interesting historical reasons. But it did, and at the time...
So I don't even know what this is. It just sounds like creation science. It's just, what the fuck is this bullshit?
I mean, I worked for several years as a professor in physics departments after I got my PhD, but there was a sense in which the kinds of intellectual activity...
Yes, well, entertaining yourself isn't much of a reason to be here. So if that's the truth, if all you're here to do is entertain yourself, then I might just block you because, frankly, I'm not here to do that. Yeah.
That were welcomed in philosophy departments were much more aligned with the sorts of things I was interested in at the time than the kinds of philosophical activity, intellectual activity that were generally encouraged in physics departments. I'm glad to say that in the 35 years or so since then, that attitude has changed a lot. And there are now many more people in physics departments who are focused on and intrigued by.
Well, that's just scary, isn't it? I mean, you know, but I guess it's so obvious. It's obvious that all of them have lost grounding. They're all floating around in the fairyverse.
These fundamental philosophical questions than there were when I got my PhD. So the short answer is it was sort of a historical accident. It also didn't change that much the kind of work I do. I've always had a rule that when you go nowadays to conferences on the foundations of physics, about half the people at such a conference will be employed in the physics department and half will be employed in the philosophy department. And it's not easy to tell by listening to their talk.
No, this really isn't entertaining. Frankly, I find this very disturbing, depressing, and and I'll end up with some despondency over it that this mush qualifies as a conversation about something serious or meaningful or scientific or logical. It's just such a pile of crap.
Which department they're employed in. And similarly, when I write a paper now, my usual rule is that if when it's done, it has more than two...
Oh, fuck. I have to go find this paper he wrote. Paper on what? Babel mush.
Equations in it, I send it to a physics journal, and if it has less than 2 equations in it, I send it to a philosophy journal. And there's not much more of a difference than that. There is a community of investigators now of what people refer to as...
Just amazing. I mean, not be able to make a distinction. I mean, philosophy is just a branch of science. It's like saying physics and sociology are the same thing or something. It's just retarded.
The foundations of physics, some of whom are in physics departments, some of whom are philosophy departments, who communicate very energetically and closely with one another, and who are really very much engaged in the same project. It's one of those areas where
I just can't wait till wait till we get the virtual frogs and we can kiss them and they'll turn into virtual princesses.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to all of our viewers for all of your fantastic questions.
Yeah, I'll say the other were fantastic questions. Not even close to any connection to something that has something to do with material, physical reality. Why didn't you ask him how do magnets work? Why didn't you ask him that question? Fuck. So anyway, sorry, this was insanely long. I guess I should put this guy's name in the video somewhere since I'm ragging on him. So I'll go do that. So anyway, insufferably long video. Sorry about that, but I mean, once you start, you want to kind of see where it goes, be fair and all that kind of crap. Like maybe they were going to ask a question, he'd actually say something honest and decent and reasonable, but didn't happen. So anyway. Yeah, sorry, I'm just, this is so frustrating. So anyway. Boom. 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 Oh, worked a little bit. Okay. Anyway, I almost fell asleep. Pretty cool. I have to try that. Okay. Till the next time and such. I guess I'll get the fuck out of here. Don't have a piece of bread or something. God. I hate this planet. I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Yes, the force bits be with me. Let us hope so. And such. That's the wrong window. I need the other one. Yeah, the one that's the one I need. Yes. One with all the images of me in it. Yeah. Hi Gary. 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 Anyway. So till the next time and stuff.